There is a secret that lives inside you. It is a secret so powerful that it determines every action you take, every word you speak, every success you achieve, and every failure you endure. Yet most people go through their entire lives without ever discovering it. They live in a prison of their own making, not realizing that the key to freedom has been in their pocket all along. This secret is not something external. It is not something you need to buy or learn or earn. It is already within you, waiting to be unlocked. It has been there since the day you were born, quietly shaping your destiny from behind the scenes. And once you understand this secret, once you learn to harness its incredible power, your life will never be the same. What is this secret? It is your self-image. The mental picture you carry of yourself, the beliefs you hold about who you are and what you are capable of achieving. This internal image is the master key that opens every door in your life. It controls what you dare to attempt and what you are afraid to try. It determines whether you succeed brilliantly or fail miserably. And the most remarkable thing of all is this: you have the power to change it. Let me tell you a story that will begin to open your eyes to the incredible power of the self-image. It is the story of a man named Dr. Maxwell Maltz, a brilliant plastic surgeon who stumbled upon one of the most important psychological discoveries of the 20th century. He was not looking for it. He was not trying to revolutionize our understanding of the human mind. He was simply trying to help his patients look better on the outside. But in doing so, he discovered something that would transform millions of lives on the inside. Dr. Maltz spent years performing plastic surgery on patients who came to him with facial disfigurements, prominent ears, crooked noses, and scars from accidents. He was remarkably skilled at his craft. He could transform a person's appearance in ways that seemed almost miraculous, and he noticed something fascinating. For many of his patients, the physical transformation led to an equally dramatic psychological transformation. A shy, withdrawn person would become confident and outgoing. A person who had considered themselves a failure would suddenly find success in their career. A lonely person would find love and companionship. It was as if changing the face had changed the entire person. Dr. Maltz watched this happen again and again, and he began to feel that he held a magic wand in his hands. He could not only transform how people looked, he could transform how they lived. But then he noticed something puzzling. There were some patients for whom the surgery seemed to make no difference at all. He would perform the same meticulous procedure, create the same beautiful result, and yet the patient would continue to act as if nothing had changed. They would still feel ugly, still feel inadequate, still live as if they were the same person they had always been. Even more curious, some patients could not even see the change when they looked in the mirror. They would insist that they looked exactly the same as before, despite clear evidence to the contrary. This posed a profound question. If changing the face changed the person, why did it work for some and not for others? What was the difference between the patients who transformed and those who remained stuck in their old patterns? Dr. Maltz began to investigate, and what he discovered would change everything. He realized that the patients who transformed had experienced a change not just in their physical appearance, but in their mental image of themselves. The patients who remained unchanged had a mental image that was scarred, distorted, or inadequate. Even though their face had been repaired, their inner picture of themselves remained damaged. It was as if they carried an internal photograph that had not been updated. This internal photograph, this mental picture of the self, turned out to be the key to everything. Dr. Maltz called it the self-image, and he discovered that it is the foundation upon which your entire personality is built. Your self-image is your own conception of the kind of person you are. It has been built up from your beliefs about yourself, most of which were unconsciously formed from your past experiences, your successes and failures, your humiliations and triumphs, and the way other people have reacted to you, especially in childhood. Once an idea or belief about yourself goes into this picture, it becomes true as far as you are concerned. You do not question its validity. You proceed to act upon it just as if it were true, even when it is completely false. And here is the crucial discovery. All your actions, feelings, behaviors, and even your abilities are always consistent with your self-image. You literally cannot act otherwise, no matter how hard you try. Think about what this means. If you see yourself as a failure, you will find ways to fail, even when success is handed to you on a silver platter. If you see yourself as someone who is unlovable, you will find ways to push people away, even when they genuinely care about you. If you see yourself as someone who cannot learn, you will struggle with even simple tasks, even though you have the intelligence to master them. Your self-image sets the boundaries of what is possible for you. It defines the area of the possible. But here is the good news that will transform your life. Your self-image can be changed. No matter how old you are, no matter how long you have held a negative view of yourself, no matter how many times you have failed in the past, you can change the mental picture you carry of yourself. And when you change that picture, you change everything. This is not mere positive thinking. This is not about putting a happy face on your problems or pretending that everything is wonderful when it is not. This is about genuine transformation that starts from within and works its way outward. It is based on solid scientific principles that have been verified in laboratories and clinics around the world. And it is available to you right now, starting today. In the chapters that follow, you will discover how your brain works as a remarkably sophisticated success mechanism. You will learn how to use your imagination to create the person you want to become. You will understand how false beliefs have hypnotized you into accepting limitations that do not exist. You will find practical techniques for building a new self-image, for developing the habit of happiness, for turning crises into opportunities, and for living with a sense of purpose and fulfillment that you may have never experienced before. The journey you are about to take is not just about reading words on a page. It is about experiencing a new way of being. It requires your active participation. You will be asked to practice exercises, to imagine vividly, to act as if you are already the person you want to become. And if you do these things consistently, if you give the process the full 21 days that it takes to form a new mental image, you will be amazed at the transformation that takes place. Before we begin, let me share one more insight that Dr. Maltz discovered. He realized that every human being has been engineered for success by their creator. You have a built-in creative mechanism that is designed to help you achieve your goals, solve your problems, and live a rich, fulfilling life. This mechanism works automatically and impersonally, but it must be given a clear target to aim at. That target is your self-image. When you present your creative mechanism with a positive, adequate self-image, it functions as a success mechanism that guides you toward achievement. When you present it with a negative, inadequate self-image, it functions as a failure mechanism that leads you toward frustration and disappointment. You are the operator of this incredible machine. You have the power to set the direction. The choice is yours. Will you continue to live according to the old picture, the one that has limited you and held you back? Or will you dare to create a new picture, one that reflects the magnificent person you were designed to be? The pages ahead contain the secrets that have transformed the lives of countless people. Salesmen who doubled and tripled their incomes. Students who went from failing grades to academic excellence. Shy people who became confident speakers and leaders. People paralyzed by fear who learned to live with courage and joy. What they have done, you can do. Who they have become, you can become. The hidden power within you is waiting to be released. The journey begins now. Part 1. The self-image, your key to a better life. The most important psychological discovery of the 20th century is the discovery of the self-image. Whether we realize it or not, each of us carries about with us a mental blueprint or picture of ourselves. It may be vague and ill-defined to our conscious gaze. In fact, it may not be consciously recognizable at all. But it is there, complete down to the last detail. This self-image is our own conception of the sort of person we are. It has been built up from our own beliefs about ourselves. But most of these beliefs about ourselves have unconsciously been formed from our past experiences, our successes and failures, our humiliations, our triumphs, and the way other people have reacted to us, especially in early childhood. Once an idea or belief about ourselves goes into this picture, it becomes true as far as we personally are concerned. We do not question its validity. We proceed to act upon it just as if it were true. This self-image becomes a golden key to living a better life because of two important discoveries that have been made about it. The first discovery is that all your actions, feelings, behavior, and even your abilities are always consistent with your self-image. In short, you will act like the sort of person you conceive yourself to be. Not only this, but you literally cannot act otherwise, in spite of all your conscious efforts or willpower. The man who conceives himself to be a failure-type person will find some way to fail, in spite of all his good intentions or his willpower, even if opportunity is literally dumped in his lap. The person who conceives himself to be a victim of injustice, one who was meant to suffer, will invariably find circumstances to verify his opinions. The self-image is a premise, a base, or a foundation upon which your entire personality, your behavior, and even your circumstances are built. Because of this, our experiences seem to verify and thereby strengthen our self-images, and a vicious or a beneficent cycle, as the case may be, is set up. Consider a schoolboy who sees himself as a failure-type student, or one who is dumb in mathematics. He will invariably find that his report card bears him out. He then has proof. A young girl who has an image of herself as the sort of person nobody likes will find indeed that she is avoided at the school dance. She literally invites rejection. Her woebegone expression, her hangdog manner, her over-anxiousness to please, or perhaps her unconscious hostility toward those she anticipates will affront her, all act to drive away those whom she would attract. Because of this objective proof, it very seldom occurs to a person that his trouble lies in his self-image or his own evaluation of himself. Tell the schoolboy that he only thinks he cannot master algebra, and he will doubt your sanity. He has tried, and still his report card tells the story. Tell the salesman that it is only an idea that he cannot earn more than a certain figure, and he can prove you wrong by his order book. He knows only too well how hard he has tried and failed. Yet, almost miraculous changes have occurred both in grades of students and in the earning capacity of salesmen when they were prevailed upon to change their self-images. The second important discovery is that the self-image can be changed. Numerous case histories have shown that one is never too young nor too old to change his self-image, and thereby start to live a new life. One of the reasons it has seemed so difficult for a person to change his habits, his personality, or his way of life has been that heretofore nearly all efforts at change have been directed to the circumference of the self, so to speak, rather than to the center. Many patients have said something like the following: "If you are talking about positive thinking, I have tried that before, and it just does not work for me." However, a little questioning invariably brings out that these individuals have employed positive thinking, or attempted to employ it, either upon particular external circumstances, or upon some particular habit or character defect. But they had never thought to change their thinking of the self, which was to accomplish these things. Positive thinking cannot be used effectively as a patch or a crutch to the same self-image. In fact, it is literally impossible to really think positively about a particular situation as long as you hold a negative concept of self. And numerous experiments have shown that once the concept of self is changed, other things consistent with the new concept of self are accomplished easily and without strain. One of the earliest and most convincing experiments along this line was conducted by the late Prescott Leckey, one of the pioneers in self-image psychology. Leckey conceived of the personality as a system of ideas, all of which must seem to be consistent with each other. Ideas which are inconsistent with the system are rejected, not believed, and not acted upon. Ideas which seem to be consistent with the system are accepted. At the very center of this system of ideas, the keystone, the base upon which all else is built, is the individual's ego ideal, his self-image, or his conception of himself. Leckey theorized that if a student had trouble learning a certain subject, it could be because, from the student's point of view, it would be inconsistent for him to learn it. Leckey believed, however, that if you could change the student's self-conception which underlies this viewpoint, his attitude toward the subject would change accordingly. If the student could be induced to change his self-definition, his learning ability should also change. This proved to be the case. One student who misspelled 55 words out of 100 and flunked so many subjects that he lost credit for a year made a general average of 91 the next year and became one of the best spellers in school. A boy who was dropped from one college because of poor grades entered Columbia and became a straight-A student. A girl who had flunked Latin 4 times after 3 talks with the school counselor finished with a grade of 84. A boy who was told by a testing bureau that he had no aptitude for English won honorable mention the next year for a literary prize. The trouble with these students was not that they were dumb or lacking in basic aptitudes. The trouble was an inadequate self-image. They identified with their mistakes and failures. Instead of saying, "I failed that test," which is factual and descriptive, they concluded, "I am a failure." Instead of saying, "I flunked that subject," they said, "I am a flunkout." Dr. Maltz discovered this same principle at work in his plastic surgery practice. When he first began the practice of plastic surgery many years ago, he was amazed by the dramatic and sudden changes in character and personality which often resulted when a facial defect was corrected. Changing the physical image in many instances appeared to create an entirely new person. In case after case, the scalpel that he held in his hand became a magic wand that not only transformed the patient's appearance, but transformed his whole life. The shy and retiring became bold and courageous. A moronic, stupid boy changed into an alert, bright youngster who went on to become an executive with a prominent firm. A salesman who had lost his touch and his faith in himself became a model of self-confidence. But what about the exceptions who did not change? The Duchess who all her life had been terribly shy and self-conscious because of a tremendous hump in her nose. Although surgery gave her a classic nose and a face that was truly beautiful, she still continued to act the part of the ugly duckling, the unwanted sister who could never bring herself to look another human being in the eye. If the scalpel itself was magic, why did it not work on the Duchess? The secret is this. To really live, that is to find life reasonably satisfying, you must have an adequate and realistic self-image that you can live with. You must find yourself acceptable to you. You must have a wholesome self-esteem. You must have a self that you can trust and believe in. You must have a self that you are not ashamed to be, and one that you can feel free to express creatively, rather than to hide or cover up. You must have a self that corresponds to reality so that you can function effectively in a real world. You must know yourself, both your strengths and your weaknesses, and be honest with yourself concerning both. When this self-image is intact and secure, you feel good. When it is threatened, you feel anxious and insecure. When it is adequate and one that you can be wholesomely proud of, you feel self-confident. You feel free to be yourself and to express yourself. You function at your optimum. When it is an object of shame, you attempt to hide it rather than express it. Creative expression is blocked. You become hostile and hard to get along with. Dr. Maltz became convinced that what each of us really wants, deep down, is more life. Happiness, success, peace of mind, or whatever your own conception of supreme good may be, is experienced in its essence as more life. When we experience expansive emotions of happiness, self-confidence, and success, we enjoy more life. And to the degree that we inhibit our abilities, frustrate our God-given talents, and allow ourselves to suffer anxiety, fear, self-condemnation, and self-hate, we literally choke off the life force available to us. There is within each one of us a life instinct which is forever working toward health, happiness, and all that makes for more life for the individual. This life instinct works for you through what Dr. Maltz calls the creative mechanism, or when used correctly, the success mechanism built into each human being. Part 2, the success mechanism within you. It may seem strange, but it is nevertheless true that up until relatively recently scientists had no idea of just how the human brain and nervous system worked purposely or to achieve a goal. They knew what happened from having made long and painstaking observations, but they had no inkling of the why or how of the process. But a new concept of how the brain and nervous system work has been discovered, and it is this concept which has thrown new light on the why and wherefore of the self-image, and how it works to change your life for the better. This new concept comes from the science of cybernetics. Cybernetics is a relatively new science which is concerned with the purposeful behavior of mechanical and electrical systems. Its most familiar example is the self-guided missile or the so-called guided missile. When a guided missile is launched, it does not head unerringly toward its target. In fact, it often goes off course, sometimes radically. It corrects its course by a process of negative feedback. It detects its errors, corrects them, and this process continues until the moment of impact. This concept has been applied to the human brain and nervous system. The new science of cybernetics has established that the human brain and nervous system operate as a marvelous and complex goal-striving mechanism. It is a sort of built-in automatic guidance system which works for you as a success mechanism, or against you as a failure mechanism, depending on how you, the operator, operate it and the goals you set for it. Your built-in success mechanism is similar in many respects to an electronic computer. It is a mechanism which operates upon information and data which is fed into it. Your success mechanism has no will of its own. It works automatically and impersonally to achieve goals of success and happiness, or unhappiness and failure, depending upon the goals which you yourself set for it. Present it with success goals, and it functions as a success mechanism. Present it with negative goals, and it operates just as impersonally and just as faithfully as a failure mechanism. Like any other servo-mechanism, it must have a clear-cut goal, objective, or problem to work upon. The goals that your creative mechanism seeks to achieve are mental images or mental pictures, which you create by the use of imagination. The key goal image is your self-image. Your self-image prescribes the limits for the accomplishment of any particular goals. It prescribes the area of the possible. Like any other servo-mechanism, your creative mechanism works upon information and data which you feed into it. Your thoughts, beliefs, and interpretations of situations. Through your attitudes and interpretations of situations, you describe the problem to be worked upon. If you feed information and data into your creative mechanism to the effect that you yourself are unworthy, inferior, undeserving, or incapable, this data is processed and acted upon as any other data in giving you the answer in the form of objective experience. Let us look more closely at this success mechanism within you. Think for a moment about the simple act of picking up a cigarette from a table and placing it between your lips. This seems like a simple act, yet consider what is involved. The distance, the weight of the cigarette, the coordination of hand and arm muscles. Yet you accomplish this feat easily, without conscious thought about how you do it. How do you do it? You do it by means of your success mechanism. You have a mental image of the goal to be achieved, that is, the cigarette in your mouth. Your success mechanism takes over and guides your hand to the target. It corrects errors automatically. If your hand is slightly off course, it corrects automatically and brings it back on target. You do not consciously direct each movement of your muscles. You have a goal, and your success mechanism takes care of the details. The same process is at work in every skill you have ever learned. Walking, talking, driving a car, playing tennis. In each case, you had a goal, and your success mechanism learned to achieve that goal through trial and error, through practice, through correction of mistakes. Your success mechanism operates on the principle of negative feedback. It takes note of errors and corrects them. This is how you learned to walk as a child. You took a step, wobbled, fell, got up and tried again. Each error was noted and corrected. Eventually, you could walk without conscious thought about the process. The principle of negative feedback is crucial to understanding how your success mechanism works. It does not mean criticism or condemnation. It means simply information about error which is used to make correction. When a guided missile goes off course, it is not criticized or condemned. It is simply fed information about its error, which it uses to correct its path. So it is with you. When you make a mistake, it is not a reflection on your worth as a human being. It is simply information which your success mechanism can use to correct your course. Mistakes are not failures. They are feedback. They are data which your success mechanism needs to function properly. The person who fears mistakes, who is terrified of failure, actually disables his success mechanism. He is so afraid of making errors that he becomes paralyzed. He cannot act because action might lead to mistakes, and so he accomplishes nothing. The person who understands that mistakes are feedback, that they are necessary information for the success mechanism, is free to act boldly. He knows that each mistake brings him closer to his goal because each mistake provides information for correction. Your success mechanism is designed to work on problems. It needs problems to solve. When you have a problem, when you have a goal, your success mechanism goes to work. It searches for solutions. It tries various approaches. It learns from failures and corrects its course. The person who has no goals, no problems to solve, no challenges to meet, is not using his success mechanism. He is letting it rust from disuse. And like any mechanism, it works better when it is used regularly. Dr. Maltz discovered that this success mechanism explains why positive thinking works for some people and not for others. When positive thinking is used to reinforce a negative self-image, it cannot work. But when positive thinking is used to change the self-image, to present the success mechanism with new goals consistent with a new self-image, it works powerfully. You can see now why the self-image is so important. It sets the boundaries within which your success mechanism operates. It defines what goals are possible for you. When you change your self-image, you expand the area of the possible. You give your success mechanism new targets to aim at, targets that were previously outside your range. The good news is that you are in charge of this mechanism. You set the goals. You provide the data. You determine whether it functions as a success mechanism or a failure mechanism. The mechanism itself is impersonal. It serves you faithfully regardless of what you ask of it. The question is, what are you asking of it? Part 3, Imagination, the first key to your success mechanism. Imagination plays a far more important role in our lives than most people realize. It is not merely the ability to daydream or to fantasize. It is the primary tool by which we communicate with our success mechanism. Through imagination, we create the mental images and mental pictures which our success mechanism seeks to achieve. The key insight that Dr. Maltz discovered is this: your nervous system cannot tell the difference between an actual experience and one that is vividly imagined. This principle has been verified by countless experiments and has profound implications for personal change. Consider some experiments that have been conducted in this area. In one famous study, researchers divided subjects into 3 groups and tested their ability to make free throws in basketball. One group practiced actually shooting baskets for 20 days. The second group practiced only in their imagination, never touching a basketball. The third group did neither. The results were remarkable. The group that practiced physically improved by 24%. The group that did not practice at all showed no improvement. But here is the surprise. The group that practiced only in their imagination improved by 23%, almost as much as those who practiced physically. How is this possible? When you vividly imagine an experience, your nervous system reacts as if the experience were actually happening. Mental images stimulate the same neural pathways as actual experiences. The brain does not distinguish between real and vividly imagined events. This principle explains why some people are terrified of things that have never happened to them. They imagine disasters vividly enough that their nervous system responds with fear as if the disaster were real. It also explains why people who imagine success vividly tend to achieve it. Your success mechanism works on mental images. It does not care whether those images come from actual experience or from imagination. It responds to the images you feed it. If you feed it images of failure, inadequacy, and fear, it will produce results consistent with those images. If you feed it images of success, confidence, and achievement, it will produce results consistent with those images. Dr. Maltz called this process creative imagination. It is creative because it actually creates new experiences, new abilities, and new outcomes. It is not wishful thinking. It is a systematic method of programming your success mechanism for success. The theater of the mind is what Dr. Maltz called the practice of deliberately creating mental movies of success. Just as an athlete might watch films of a perfect performance, you can create your own mental films of yourself, performing perfectly in any area of your life. Here is how it works. Find a quiet place where you will not be disturbed. Close your eyes and relax. Then create a mental movie of yourself succeeding at whatever you want to accomplish. Make the movie as vivid as possible. See the colors, hear the sounds, feel the emotions. The more vivid and detailed the mental image, the more effective it will be. If you are afraid of public speaking, create a mental movie of yourself giving a speech confidently and effectively. See yourself standing before the audience, calm and composed. Hear your voice strong and clear. Feel the satisfaction of a speech well delivered. The more you practice this mental movie, the more your nervous system accepts it as a real experience. If you want to improve your golf game, mentally rehearse perfect shots. See the ball flying toward the target. Feel the perfect swing. Experience the satisfaction of a shot well played. Your muscles will actually receive training from this mental practice. If you are going into an important business meeting, mentally rehearse the meeting going well. See yourself handling every question with confidence. Hear yourself speaking articulately. Feel the success of a productive meeting. The key is that this mental practice must be done correctly. It is not enough to merely think about success. You must experience it in your imagination with full sensory detail. You must feel the emotions associated with success. The more senses you involve, the more effective the practice. Dr. Maltz shared many case histories of people who transformed their lives through creative imagination. A salesman who mentally rehearsed successful sales calls and saw his income triple. A student who imagined herself mastering difficult subjects and saw her grades improve dramatically. A shy person who mentally practiced social situations and found herself becoming confident and outgoing. One particularly striking case involved a man who had a paralyzing fear of public speaking. He would become physically ill at the thought of speaking before a group. Traditional methods of treatment had failed. Dr. Maltz had him practice mental movies of himself speaking confidently. He did this religiously for several weeks. When the time came for an actual speech, he found himself surprisingly calm. His nervous system had been trained by his imagination. The implications of this are enormous. You can literally practice success in your imagination. You can build confidence without risk. You can develop skills without the possibility of failure. You can program your success mechanism for achievement. But there is a warning here as well. Your imagination works both ways. If you habitually imagine failure, rejection, and humiliation, you are practicing these things just as effectively. Your nervous system learns from your mental movies whether they are of success or failure. Many people are inadvertently programming themselves for failure through their habitual negative imaginings. How do you use your imagination correctly? First, set aside time each day for mental practice. 15 to 20 minutes is sufficient. Find a quiet place. Relax deeply. Then create vivid mental images of yourself achieving your goals. Make these images as detailed and realistic as possible. Involve all your senses. Feel the emotions of success. Second, catch yourself when you are imagining negative outcomes. When you find yourself mentally rehearsing failure or embarrassment, stop. Replace the negative image with a positive one. Do not let negative mental movies run unchallenged. Third, use your imagination to create new self-images. Visualize yourself as the person you want to become. See yourself acting, thinking, and feeling as that person. Your success mechanism will begin to make this image a reality. Remember, your nervous system cannot tell the difference between real and imagined experience. It responds to the images you give it. Choose those images wisely. Part 4, Dehypnotizing Yourself from False Beliefs. Most people are walking around in a trance. Not a literal trance induced by a hypnotist, but a hypnotic state induced by years of accepting false beliefs about themselves. They have been hypnotized by well-meaning parents, by teachers, by peers, by society, and by their own repeated failures into believing that they are limited, inadequate, and incapable of great achievement. Dr. Maltz observed that many of his patients acted as if they were under a hypnotic spell. They had accepted certain beliefs about themselves so completely that they could not act contrary to those beliefs, no matter how much they wanted to. Their behavior was literally controlled by false ideas that had been planted in their minds. Consider what happens in formal hypnosis. A skilled hypnotist can convince a subject that he cannot lift his arm. The subject may struggle with all his might, but he cannot lift his arm. His belief that he cannot do so actually prevents him from doing so. The limitation is not physical. The limitation is in his mind. Similarly, people have been hypnotized into believing they cannot succeed in certain areas. A student may have been told so often that he is poor in mathematics that he has come to believe it completely. He may struggle and try with all his might, but he cannot learn mathematics. The limitation is not in his ability. The limitation is in his belief. A salesman may have been told that he does not have what it takes to succeed in sales. He may have failed a few times and concluded that the criticism was correct. Now he is hypnotized into believing he cannot succeed. His belief actually prevents success. Dr. Maltz realized that the process of dehypnotization, of breaking free from false beliefs, is essential for personal growth. We must wake up from the trance that has limited us. We must recognize the false beliefs that have controlled our behavior and replace them with beliefs that serve us. Where do these false beliefs come from? They come from many sources. Parents, often with the best intentions, may have told us that we were clumsy or slow or not very bright. Teachers may have labeled us as poor students in certain subjects. Peers may have ridiculed us and made us feel inferior. Our own failures may have convinced us that we are incapable of success. Over the years, these messages accumulate and form a web of false beliefs. We accept them without question. We act upon them as if they were true. And our actions then confirm the beliefs, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. The first step in dehypnotization is to recognize that you have been hypnotized. You must become aware of the false beliefs that are controlling your behavior. This requires honest self-examination. What beliefs do you hold about yourself? Where did they come from? Are they true? Ask yourself, what limitations have I accepted about myself? What have I been told I cannot do? What have I concluded about my abilities based on past failures? Make a list of these limiting beliefs. Then examine each one critically. Is it true? What evidence supports it? What evidence contradicts it? You may find that many of your limiting beliefs have no basis in reality. They are merely opinions, perhaps expressed by someone who did not know better and accepted by you without question. The second step in dehypnotization is to challenge the false beliefs. Just because you have believed something for years does not make it true. Just because someone told you something about yourself does not make it accurate. You have the right to question every belief you hold. Dr. Maltz shared the case of a woman who had been told by her mother that she was unattractive and would never find love. She accepted this belief completely and lived accordingly. She avoided social situations. She dressed poorly. She acted in ways that made her unattractive. Her belief created her reality. When she recognized the belief as false, when she challenged the idea that her mother's opinion was fact, she was able to change. She began to see herself as attractive. She began to act accordingly. She eventually found love and happiness. The third step in dehypnotization is to replace false beliefs with true ones. This is where creative imagination comes in. You create new beliefs by creating new mental images of yourself. You practice seeing yourself differently. You act as if the new beliefs were true. The 21-day principle is important here. Dr. Maltz observed from his plastic surgery practice that it takes about 21 days for a new self-image to form. After surgery, patients needed about 3 weeks to get used to their new faces. The same principle applies to psychological change. You must practice your new beliefs consistently for at least 21 days before they begin to feel natural. During this period, you will likely feel some discomfort. You will feel as if you are pretending, as if you are being fake. This is normal. You are in a transition period between the old self and the new self. Persist through this discomfort. Eventually, the new self-image will become natural. Dr. Maltz described the case of a businessman who felt like a failure. He had failed in several ventures and had come to see himself as someone who could not succeed. Dr. Maltz had him create a new self-image. Every day for 21 days, this man spent time visualizing himself as a successful businessman. He imagined himself making good decisions, closing deals, leading effectively. At first it felt strange, but by the end of 21 days, the new self-image had taken hold. His behavior changed, his results improved. The process of dehypnotization is not about positive thinking in the superficial sense. It is not about repeating affirmations without really believing them. It is about replacing false beliefs with true ones. It is about waking up from the trance that has limited you. Remember that the beliefs that limit you were learned. They were programmed into your mind through repetition and emotional intensity. What was learned can be unlearned. What was programmed can be reprogrammed. You are not stuck with your current beliefs about yourself. You have within you a success mechanism that is ready to serve you, but it can only serve you according to the beliefs you hold about what is possible. Change those beliefs, and you change what is possible for you. Dehypnotize yourself from the false beliefs that have limited you, and you free yourself to achieve what you are truly capable of achieving. Part 5. The Power of Rational Thinking and Relaxation. Rational thinking and relaxation might seem like an unlikely combination. One suggests mental activity, the other suggests the absence of activity. But Dr. Maltz discovered that these two elements are essential partners in the process of personal change. Let us begin with rational thinking. Dr. Maltz was careful to distinguish rational thinking from what is often called positive thinking. Positive thinking, as commonly practiced, sometimes involves telling yourself things that you do not really believe. It can become a form of self-deception. Rational thinking, on the other hand, involves seeing things as they really are. Rational thinking means examining the facts objectively. It means questioning assumptions and conclusions that you have accepted without examination. It means distinguishing between facts and interpretations, between what actually happened and what you tell yourself about what happened. Consider the example of a man who fails to get a promotion at work. The fact is that he did not get the promotion. But what does he tell himself about this fact? He might tell himself that he is a failure, that he will never succeed, that his boss does not like him. These are interpretations, not facts. Rational thinking would examine these interpretations and ask whether they are accurate. Perhaps he did not get the promotion because he lacked certain skills. This is a fact that can be addressed. Perhaps he did not get it because the position was given to someone more qualified. This is a fact that does not reflect negatively on him. Perhaps he did not get it because of circumstances beyond his control. Again, this is a fact that does not define his worth. Rational thinking separates the facts from the interpretations. It prevents us from drawing false conclusions from our experiences. It keeps us from turning setbacks into evidence of our inadequacy. Dr. Maltz observed that people who suffer from anxiety and fear are usually worrying about things that have not happened yet. They are creating mental movies of future disasters. Rational thinking asks, what is the actual evidence that these disasters will occur? What are the realistic probabilities? What can actually be done to prevent or prepare for these events? Rational thinking also examines our beliefs about ourselves. What evidence do we have for the negative beliefs we hold? Are we accepting the opinions of others as facts? Are we generalizing from specific failures to global conclusions about our worth? Rational thinking challenges these patterns. But rational thinking alone is not enough. We also need relaxation. This is where many people go wrong. They try to change themselves through willpower and effort alone. They tense up. They strain. They try too hard. And in doing so, they interfere with their success mechanism. Your success mechanism works best when you are relaxed. It operates automatically and unconsciously. When you consciously try to control it through tension and effort, you actually interfere with its operation. Think of the athlete who tries too hard, the baseball player who squeezes the bat too tightly and cannot hit well, the golfer who concentrates too intensely and loses his swing, the tennis player who tenses up and makes unforced errors. These athletes are interfering with their success mechanism through conscious effort. The same principle applies to mental performance. When you are tense and anxious, your success mechanism cannot function properly. Creativity is blocked, problem-solving ability is reduced, memory is impaired. You make mistakes that you would not make in a relaxed state. Dr. Maltz recommended regular periods of relaxation as part of the process of personal change. He suggested setting aside time each day to relax deeply. During these periods, you let go of tension and conscious effort. You allow your success mechanism to work without interference. One technique he recommended is the practice of physical relaxation combined with mental rehearsal. You relax your body progressively, starting from your feet and moving up to your head. Then, in this relaxed state, you practice your mental movies of success. The combination of relaxation and positive mental rehearsal is powerful. Another technique is to practice letting go of problems. When you have a problem that needs solving, define it clearly. Gather all the relevant information. Consider possible solutions. Then let it go. Trust your success mechanism to work on it. Often, solutions will come to you when you are not consciously thinking about the problem. The concept of effortlessness is important here. This does not mean doing nothing. It means doing what needs to be done without strain, without tension, without trying too hard. It means trusting your success mechanism to guide you. It means allowing rather than forcing. Dr. Maltz observed that successful people in every field often describe a state of flow. They are fully engaged in what they are doing, but without strain or effort. Things seem to happen naturally. This is the success mechanism working without conscious interference. Relaxation also helps us deal with stress and anxiety. When we are relaxed, we respond better to challenges. We think more clearly, we make better decisions, we are more creative, we have more energy. Relaxation is not a luxury. It is a necessity for optimal functioning. The combination of rational thinking and relaxation creates a powerful foundation for change. Rational thinking helps us see clearly. Relaxation helps our success mechanism function optimally. Together, they enable us to change our self-image and our lives. Practice rational thinking by examining your beliefs and interpretations. Ask whether they are based on facts or assumptions. Question conclusions that you have accepted without examination. Separate what actually happened from what you tell yourself about what happened. Practice relaxation by setting aside time each day to let go of tension. Use this time to practice your mental movies of success. Trust your success mechanism to work on your goals. Let go of the need to control everything consciously. Remember, you have within you a success mechanism that can guide you toward your goals. Your job is not to make it work through effort and strain. Your job is to give it clear direction and then get out of its way. Part 6, The Habit of Happiness. Happiness is not something that happens to you. It is not something that comes from outside circumstances. Happiness is a habit that can be cultivated. This is one of the most important discoveries that Dr. Maltz made in his work with patients. Most people believe that happiness is a result of favorable circumstances. If they get what they want, they will be happy. If they achieve success, they will be happy. If they find the right relationship, they will be happy. But this understanding is backwards. Happy people tend to achieve success and have good relationships. Happiness is not the result of success. Success is often the result of happiness. Dr. Maltz observed that some of his patients were unhappy regardless of their circumstances. They had successful careers, loving families, good health, and still they were miserable. Other patients had difficult circumstances, yet they managed to be happy. The difference was not in their external situations. The difference was in their mental habits. Happiness, Dr. Maltz concluded, is a mental habit. It is a way of thinking, a way of looking at life. And like any habit, it can be learned. It can be cultivated through practice. What are the habits of happy people? First, they tend to focus on what they have rather than what they lack. They appreciate the good in their lives rather than dwelling on what is missing. They count blessings rather than burdens. Second, happy people tend to live in the present rather than the past or future. They do not waste energy regretting past mistakes or worrying about future problems. They engage fully with whatever is happening right now. Third, happy people tend to have a sense of purpose. They have goals that give meaning to their lives. They are working towards something that matters to them. Fourth, happy people tend to accept themselves. They have a realistic but positive self-image. They recognize their faults but do not condemn themselves for them. Fifth, happy people tend to be resilient. They bounce back from setbacks. They see difficulties as temporary rather than permanent. They maintain hope even in challenging circumstances. These habits can be learned. If you are not naturally happy, you can cultivate these mental patterns through practice. You can train yourself to focus on the positive. You can learn to live in the present. You can develop a sense of purpose. You can build self-acceptance. You can strengthen your resilience. Dr. Maltz suggested specific exercises for developing the habit of happiness. One exercise is the practice of gratitude. Each day, write down 3 things you are grateful for. This simple practice shifts your attention from what is lacking to what is present. Over time, this becomes a habit of thought. Another exercise is the practice of present moment awareness. Throughout your day, bring your attention to what is happening right now. When you are eating, really taste your food. When you are walking, really feel the ground beneath your feet. When you are talking with someone, really listen. This practice counteracts the tendency to live in past regrets or future worries. A third exercise is to deliberately cultivate positive emotions. Watch your thoughts and notice when you are thinking negatively. Then consciously replace negative thoughts with positive ones. This is not about denying reality. It is about choosing where to focus your attention. Even in difficult circumstances, there are positive elements you can focus on. A fourth exercise is to do things that make you happy. Seems obvious, but many people neglect this. Make a list of activities that bring you joy, then make time for these activities regularly. Do not wait for happiness to arrive. Create it through your actions. Dr. Maltz also addressed the question of unhappiness. What keeps people unhappy? Often, it is habits of thought that have become automatic. The habit of comparing yourself unfavorably to others. The habit of expecting the worst. The habit of dwelling on past hurts. The habit of criticizing yourself. These habits can be broken. It requires awareness first. Notice when you are engaging in these patterns. Then deliberately choose different thoughts. Over time, new habits form. Another source of unhappiness is the belief that you need certain things to be happy. I will be happy when I get a promotion. I will be happy when I find the right partner. I will be happy when I have more money. These conditions for happiness keep you from being happy now. The truth is, you can choose to be happy right now, regardless of your circumstances. This does not mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing an attitude of appreciation and optimism despite the problems. Dr. Maltz told the story of a patient who had every reason to be unhappy. She had health problems, financial difficulties, and family troubles. Yet she was cheerful and optimistic. When asked how she maintained her positive attitude, she said that every morning she decided to be happy that day. It was a choice she made consciously. Over time, it became a habit. The habit of happiness is not selfish or unrealistic. Happy people are more effective in their work. They have better relationships. They handle stress better. They are healthier. Happiness benefits not only yourself, but everyone around you. Make a decision to cultivate the habit of happiness. Practice gratitude. Live in the present. Focus on what you have rather than what you lack. Choose positive thoughts. Do things that bring you joy. Over time, happiness will become your natural state. Part 7, the success-type personality. What makes someone successful? Is it intelligence, talent, luck? Dr. Maltz studied successful people extensively and discovered that they share certain characteristics. These characteristics form what he called the success-type personality. The success-type personality is not something you are born with. It is something you can develop. By understanding the characteristics of successful people and consciously cultivating them, you can become more successful yourself. Dr. Maltz identified 7 characteristics of the success-type personality. He arranged them to form the word success to make them easier to remember. S stands for sense of direction. Successful people have a clear sense of where they are going. They have goals that give meaning and purpose to their lives. They know what they want to achieve and why it matters to them. Without a sense of direction, you drift. You react to whatever comes along rather than creating the life you want. You may be busy, but your activity lacks purpose. Having a sense of direction does not mean having your whole life planned out. It means having goals that are meaningful to you and working toward them. How do you develop a sense of direction? Think about what matters to you. What do you want to achieve? What kind of person do you want to become? What contribution do you want to make? Set goals in these areas, write them down, review them regularly. Let them guide your daily decisions. U stands for understanding. Successful people seek to understand reality as it is, not as they wish it were. They face facts honestly. They recognize their strengths and weaknesses. They understand other people and situations accurately. Understanding is essential because you cannot solve problems you do not understand. You cannot improve if you do not see yourself clearly. You cannot work effectively with others if you do not understand them. Develop understanding by seeking truth, even when it is uncomfortable. Ask questions. Listen carefully. Be willing to challenge your assumptions. Seek feedback from others. Examine your biases and blind spots. C stands for courage. Successful people have the courage to act despite fear. They take risks. They try new things. They stand up for what they believe. They persist in the face of obstacles. Courage is not the absence of fear. Everyone feels fear. Courage is acting anyway. The person who never feels fear is either dead or deluded. The successful person feels fear and moves forward regardless. Develop courage by taking small risks. Do things that make you uncomfortable. Speak up when you might be criticized. Try something you might fail at. Each act of courage builds your capacity for the next one. C stands for charity. Successful people are charitable toward others and toward themselves. They give people the benefit of the doubt. They forgive mistakes. They are generous with their time, knowledge, and resources. Charity toward yourself is especially important. Many people are their own harshest critics. They beat themselves up for mistakes. They hold themselves to impossible standards. This destroys confidence and undermines effectiveness. Develop charity by practicing forgiveness. Forgive others who have wronged you, not for their sake, but for yours. Forgive yourself for your mistakes and limitations. Treat yourself with the kindness you would show a good friend. E stands for esteem. Successful people have healthy self-esteem. They believe they have value and worth. They respect themselves. They do not allow others to demean or mistreat them. Self-esteem is not arrogance or conceit. It is a realistic appreciation of your own worth. It is recognizing that you matter, that you have something to contribute, that you deserve good things in life. Develop esteem by treating yourself with respect. Take care of your physical and mental health. Stand up for yourself when necessary. Acknowledge your achievements. Stop negative self-talk. S stands for self-acceptance. Successful people accept themselves as they are while still striving to improve. They do not waste energy fighting reality. They do not beat themselves up for not being perfect. Self-acceptance does not mean giving up on improvement. It means accepting your current reality as the starting point for growth. You cannot change what you do not accept. Fighting against what is wastes energy that could be used for growth. Develop self-acceptance by embracing all parts of yourself. Acknowledge your strengths and your weaknesses. Recognize that you are a work in progress. Stop comparing yourself to others or to some ideal version of yourself. S stands for self-confidence. Successful people believe in their ability to handle challenges and achieve goals. They trust themselves. They have faced difficulties before and know they can face them again. Self-confidence comes from experience. Every challenge you overcome builds confidence. Every goal you achieve strengthens your belief in yourself. Self-confidence is not something you are born with. It is something you build through action. Develop self-confidence by taking on challenges and succeeding. Start with small challenges and work up to larger ones. Keep a record of your successes. Review them when you doubt yourself. These 7 characteristics work together. A sense of direction gives purpose. Understanding provides accurate information. Courage enables action. Charity creates positive relationships. Esteem provides inner strength. Self-acceptance frees energy for growth. Self-confidence enables you to face the future with hope. You can develop each of these characteristics through conscious practice. You are not stuck with your current personality. You can become the person you want to be. Part 8, the failure mechanism and how to overcome it. Equals. Just as there are characteristics that lead to success, there are patterns that lead to failure. Dr. Maltz called these patterns the failure mechanism. Understanding this mechanism is essential for avoiding failure and achieving success. Dr. Maltz identified 7 characteristics of the failure-type personality. He arranged them to form the word failure to make them easier to remember. F stands for frustration. Frustration occurs when you cannot achieve a goal that matters to you. Everyone experiences frustration at times, but the failure-type person dwells on frustration, becomes bitter, and gives up. Frustration is not inherently harmful. It can be a signal that you need to change your approach. But when frustration becomes a chronic state, it undermines your effectiveness. You begin to expect failure. You stop trying. How do you overcome frustration? First, recognize that frustration is a signal, not a sentence. It tells you that something needs to change. Second, examine your goals. Are they realistic? Are they truly yours? Third, examine your methods. Is there a better approach? Fourth, practice patience. Some goals take time to achieve. A stands for aggressiveness. Aggressiveness here does not mean healthy assertiveness. It means hostility, anger, and the desire to hurt or dominate. The failure-type person is often aggressive, striking out at others and creating conflict. Aggressiveness destroys relationships. It alienates people who might help you. It creates enemies. It consumes energy that could be used constructively. Overcome aggressiveness by understanding its source. Often, aggression comes from fear or hurt. When you feel aggressive, ask yourself what you are afraid of or what has hurt you. Address the underlying emotion rather than lashing out. I stands for insecurity. Insecurity is the feeling that you are not safe, that something bad might happen, that you cannot handle whatever comes. The failure-type person is often insecure, worried, and anxious. Insecurity paralyses action. You do not take risks because you are afraid. You do not pursue opportunities because you doubt yourself. You settle for less because you do not believe you deserve more. Overcome insecurity by building your sense of competence. Take on challenges and succeed. Prove to yourself that you can handle difficulties. Develop skills that give you confidence. Remember that you have survived every challenge you have faced so far. L stands for loneliness. Loneliness is the feeling of being disconnected from others. The failure-type person often feels alone, even when surrounded by people. Loneliness may come from an inability to connect, from fear of intimacy, or from pushing people away through negative behavior. It undermines happiness and success because humans are social creatures. We need connection to thrive. Overcome loneliness by reaching out to others. Take the initiative in building relationships. Be interested in others rather than focused on yourself. Join groups or activities where you can meet people with similar interests. U stands for uncertainty. Uncertainty is the avoidance of making decisions or commitments. The failure-type person fears making wrong choices and therefore avoids choosing at all. Uncertainty keeps you stuck. You cannot move forward because you are afraid of making a mistake. You miss opportunities because you cannot decide. You frustrate others who need your input. Overcome uncertainty by accepting that no decision is perfect. Every choice involves risk. The person who cannot decide has already made a decision to let circumstances decide for them. Practice making decisions. Start with small ones and work up to larger ones. Accept that some decisions will be wrong and learn from them. R stands for resentment. Resentment is holding on to anger about past wrongs. The failure-type person dwells on injustices, real or imagined, and nurses grievances. Resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It hurts you, not the person you resent. It keeps you focused on the past rather than the present. It drains energy that could be used for growth. Overcome resentment through forgiveness. Forgive not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve freedom from the burden. Let go of the need to be right. Focus on the present and future rather than the past. E stands for emptiness. Emptiness is the feeling that life has no meaning or purpose. The failure-type person often feels empty, going through the motions without genuine engagement. Emptiness comes from lack of purpose. from living according to others' expectations rather than your own values, from suppressing your true self. It is one of the most painful feelings a person can have. Overcome emptiness by discovering what matters to you. What do you care about? What gives you satisfaction? What would you do if you could do anything? Create meaning through purposeful activity. Contribute to something larger than yourself. These 7 characteristics also work together. Frustration leads to aggressiveness. Insecurity leads to loneliness. Uncertainty leads to resentment. Emptiness is often the end result. But you can break this cycle. By recognizing these patterns in yourself, you can interrupt them. You can replace failure-type characteristics with success-type characteristics. You can choose courage over fear, charity over aggression, direction over emptiness. The failure mechanism is not your destiny. It is a pattern that can be changed. You have the power to choose different ways of thinking and acting. The choice is yours. Part 9. Removing emotional scars and building confidence. In our journey through Psycho-Cybernetics, we have explored the remarkable power of self-image and learned how our internal servo-mechanism guides us toward success. Now we turn our attention to one of the most pervasive obstacles that prevents people from living full, creative lives. This obstacle is not external. It lives within us, often buried so deep that we barely recognize its presence. I am speaking of emotional scars. Dr. Maxwell Maltz observed thousands of patients during his career as a plastic surgeon, and he noticed something fascinating about the relationship between physical and emotional healing. Patients would come to him with facial disfigurements, scars from accidents, or congenital deformities. After successful surgery, many experienced dramatic personality transformations. They became more confident, more outgoing, more alive. But not all of them. Some patients, despite excellent surgical results, remained withdrawn, bitter, and unhappy. Their physical scars had been removed, yet something else kept them trapped in a prison of their own making. This discovery led Dr. Maltz to investigate emotional scarring, a process that operates much like its physical counterpart, but with far more devastating consequences for our psychological well-being. Understanding this process is the first step toward freeing ourselves from its grip. Consider how physical scars form. When you cut your finger, your body immediately goes to work. Blood cells rush to the scene. A protective scab forms over the wound. Beneath that scab, specialized cells create new tissue to close the gap. This is a miraculous process designed to protect you from infection and further injury. But here is what is important to understand. Scar tissue is not the same as original tissue. It is thicker, less flexible, and serves primarily as a patch. It protects, but it also limits. If a scar forms across a joint, it can restrict movement. If it spreads too widely, it can become disfiguring. Emotional scars form in exactly the same way. Every one of us carries emotional wounds from childhood criticism, romantic betrayal, peer rejection, or personal failure. These wounds hurt, and when they hurt deeply enough, our psyche does exactly what our body does when physically injured. It forms scar tissue. Emotional scar tissue begins as a protective mechanism. When we are hurt, we instinctively pull back. We become defensive. We build walls around our vulnerable places. In the short term, this protection serves a purpose. The problem arises when the scar tissue becomes permanent, when temporary protection hardens into a lifelong prison. Dr. Maltz described emotional scars as calcified protective reactions. They start as a natural response to pain, but over time, they become rigid barriers that prevent new experiences from reaching us. A person who was betrayed by a lover may conclude that all romantic relationships are dangerous. Someone who was ridiculed for speaking up in class may remain silent for the rest of their life. The emotional scar tissue blocks not only potential pain, but also potential joy, connection, and growth. Consider the case of a businessman named Harold who came to Dr. Maltz for consultation. Harold was successful by every external measure. He had built a thriving company, owned a beautiful home, and seemed to have everything going for him. Yet he felt empty and isolated. He had been married 3 times, each relationship ending in bitter divorce. His employees found him impossible to work with, because he was constantly suspicious of their motives. During their conversations, Harold revealed that his father had been a harsh, critical man who never missed an opportunity to point out his son's shortcomings. Young Harold learned early that the world was a hostile place and that people could not be trusted. He developed a thick shell of cynicism and defensiveness that protected him from his father's criticism. But 30 years later, that same shell was preventing him from experiencing love, trust, and genuine human connection. His emotional scar tissue had long outlived its usefulness, yet it continued to control his behavior. Dr. Maltz understood that removing emotional scars requires a different approach than removing physical ones. You cannot simply cut them away with a scalpel. Instead, you must address the underlying beliefs and self-image patterns that keep them in place. The goal is not to become so hardened that nothing can hurt you. The goal is to become so healthy and resilient that you can experience life fully without needing the protection of scar tissue. This brings us to what Dr. Maltz called the 3 rules for immunizing yourself against emotional hurts. These principles, when practiced consistently, can help prevent the formation of harmful emotional scars while allowing you to remain open and vulnerable in healthy ways. The first rule is to be too big to be threatened. This is not about physical size or social status. It is about developing a self-image that is sufficiently expansive and secure that petty slights and rejections cannot penetrate your core. Think of it this way. If you see yourself as small and insignificant, then every criticism feels like a devastating attack. But if you have a big, generous self-image, the same criticism becomes like a pebble thrown at a mountain. It simply does not matter. Developing this quality requires a shift in how you view yourself. Dr. Maltz encouraged his patients to see themselves as people of dignity and worth, not because of external achievements, but simply because they are human beings with unique value. When you truly believe in your own intrinsic worth, you become immune to the opinions of others. You can listen to feedback without being crushed by it. You can experience rejection without questioning your fundamental value as a person. The second rule is to refuse to take offense. This sounds simple, but it requires deep psychological work. Taking offense is a choice we make, often unconsciously. When someone criticizes us, dismisses us, or treats us unfairly, we have the option to react with anger and defensiveness or to respond with calm detachment. The person who takes offense is like someone who keeps touching a hot stove and then blames the stove for burning them. Refusing to take offense means recognizing that other people's behavior says more about them than about you. Dr. Maltz shared the story of a patient named Alina who had been deeply hurt by her mother-in-law's constant criticism. Every family gathering became an ordeal because Alina felt attacked at every turn. She had developed elaborate emotional defenses that left her tense and miserable whenever her in-laws were present. Through their work together, Alina came to understand that her mother-in-law was a deeply unhappy woman who criticized everyone, not just Alina. Her criticism was not really about Alina at all. Once Alina saw this, she was able to attend family gatherings with genuine compassion rather than defensiveness. The criticism no longer wounded her because she no longer took it personally. The third rule is to give no one the power to make you feel inferior without your consent. This principle was famously echoed by Eleanor Roosevelt, who said essentially the same thing. No one can make you feel small unless you agree to feel small. Your self-image is your own property. Others may try to damage it, but they cannot succeed unless you cooperate with their efforts. This rule requires us to take full responsibility for our emotional responses. It is tempting to blame others for making us feel bad, but when we blame them, we also give them power over us. If someone else controls how you feel, then you are their prisoner. Taking back that power means recognizing that your feelings are your own creation, your own responses based on your own interpretations. You can choose different interpretations. You can choose different responses. With these 3 rules as preventive measures, Dr. Maltz then turned to the question of what to do with emotional scars that have already formed. The answer, he discovered, lies in the power of therapeutic forgiveness. Most people misunderstand forgiveness. They think it means condoning bad behavior or pretending that hurtful actions did not matter. They think forgiveness means letting someone off the hook. But therapeutic forgiveness is not about the other person at all. It is about releasing yourself from the prison of resentment. Holding on to grudges and old hurts is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Your resentment does not punish those who hurt you. It punishes you. It keeps you tethered to the past, reliving old wounds again and again. Emotional scar tissue cannot dissolve while you are actively holding on to the anger and bitterness that created it. Dr. Maltz described forgiveness as a form of emotional surgery. When you truly forgive, you are cutting away diseased tissue that has been poisoning your system. This is not easy work. It requires genuine willingness to let go of the grievance, the sense of having been wronged, the belief that you are owed something for your suffering. But the reward is freedom. One powerful example involved Margaret, who had carried hatred toward her former husband for 15 years after he left her for another woman. She spent every day nursing her anger, feeling it gave her strength and righteousness. But when she came to Dr. Maltz, she was depressed, anxious, and physically ill. Her body was manifesting the emotional poison she had been carrying. It took months for Margaret to understand that her hatred was not hurting her ex-husband. He had moved on. The only person suffering was Margaret herself. When she finally forgave, her depression lifted, her physical symptoms improved, and she eventually remarried. The forgiveness did not excuse what her husband had done. It simply freed Margaret from her self-made prison. Forgiveness, Dr. Maltz emphasized, must be complete to be therapeutic. Partial forgiveness is like partial surgery. It leaves infection behind. True forgiveness means letting go entirely, with no residue of bitterness, no desire for revenge, no secret hope that the other person will suffer. This kind of forgiveness is not something you do for the other person. You do it for yourself. Dr. Maltz also shared the case of Thomas, a young soldier wounded in battle who was left with severe facial disfigurement. The physical scar was significant, but the emotional scar was worse. Thomas felt the world had stolen his future. He became bitter, isolated, and filled with rage toward the enemy. His bitterness poisoned every aspect of his life. He could not hold a job and pushed away everyone who tried to help. Through counseling, Thomas understood that his hatred was only hurting him. The day he finally forgave was the day his life began again. He still carried the physical scar, but the emotional scar dissolved. He went on to build a successful career and a loving family. Finally, Dr. Maltz introduced the concept of giving yourself an emotional facelift. Just as physical facelifts can help people see themselves differently, emotional facelifts can transform how we feel about ourselves from the inside out. An emotional facelift involves deliberately and systematically revising your self-image. You begin by identifying the emotional scars you carry, the old wounds that have calcified into rigid beliefs about yourself and the world. Then you challenge those beliefs with new evidence, new experiences, and new interpretations. You visualize yourself as healed and whole, free from the protective armor that has been weighing you down. This process takes time and practice. It requires consistent mental rehearsal, just like any other skill we have discussed in this book. You visualize yourself responding to old triggers in new ways. You imagine yourself confident and open rather than defensive and closed. You practice feeling worthy of love and respect, not because of what you have achieved, but simply because you exist. Dr. Maltz recommended several specific exercises for this emotional renovation. The first is the mirror exercise. Each morning, look into your own eyes in a mirror and speak to yourself with genuine kindness. Tell yourself that you are worthy of love. Tell yourself that the past is over and cannot hurt you anymore. Tell yourself that you are free to create a new future. This may feel strange at first, but with practice, it becomes a powerful tool for reshaping your self-image. The second exercise involves writing what Dr. Maltz called a forgiveness letter. This is not a letter you necessarily send. It is a letter you write to the person who hurt you, expressing all your pain, your anger, and your grief. Let it all pour onto the page. Then, in the final paragraph, write that you forgive them. Not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve freedom. Many people find that the simple act of writing this letter, even if they never send it, releases enormous emotional burden. The third exercise is the daily visualization practice. Each day, spend 15 minutes in quiet reflection, imagining yourself as completely free from old emotional scars. See yourself interacting with others without defensiveness. Visualize yourself receiving criticism without being wounded. Imagine yourself trusting and being trusted, loving and being loved. Picture yourself walking through life with your head high, unburdened by the weight of old grievances. The more vividly and frequently you practice these mental images, the more your nervous system accepts them as reality. A practical technique Dr. Maltz suggested is to treat yourself as you would treat a dear friend who had been wounded. We are often far harsher with ourselves than we would ever be with someone we love. If your best friend had been betrayed, would you tell them that they were unlovable? Would you tell them that they should never trust anyone again? Of course not. You would offer them compassion and encouragement. You would remind them of their worth. Extend that same kindness to yourself. As we bring this section to a close, consider what emotional scars you might be carrying. What old wounds have hardened into permanent walls? What protective mechanisms have outlived their usefulness? The journey toward a healthy self-image requires that we do the hard work of emotional healing, that we cut away the scar tissue that prevents us from living fully. Remember this essential truth. Your emotional scars were formed as protection, but they have become a prison. The key to that prison has been in your hand all along. Forgiveness is that key. Self-compassion is that key. A renewed self-image is that key. You have the power to walk free, not because the past did not hurt, but because you refuse to let the past define your future. Part 10. Unlocking your real personality. Every person possesses within them a real personality, an authentic self that represents who they truly are at their core. This genuine personality is not something you need to create or build from scratch. It already exists, fully formed and waiting to be expressed. The tragedy that befalls so many people is not that they lack personality or character, but that they have buried their real selves under layers of artificial constraints, excessive caution, and crippling self-doubt. They live their lives behind masks, presenting faces to the world that feel foreign and uncomfortable, while their true nature remains locked away, prisoner to fears and inhibitions that have accumulated over years of negative conditioning. Dr. Maxwell Maltz discovered through his extensive work with patients that this suppression of the real personality stems not from any fundamental flaw in the person, but from a malfunctioning feedback system within their mental machinery. Just as a guided missile requires accurate feedback to reach its target, your creative mechanism needs clear signals to function properly. When this feedback system becomes corrupted by excessive negative input, the entire operation breaks down. The person becomes like a machine that has been programmed to second-guess every move, to question every impulse, and to doubt every natural expression. They lose touch with their authentic self not because it has disappeared, but because they have erected barriers that prevent its expression. Consider what happens when excessive negative feedback enters any system. Imagine a speaker system that picks up its own output and feeds it back through the input. The result is a deafening squeal that renders the system useless. This is precisely what occurs in the human mind when negative feedback loops spiral out of control. Every action, every word, every gesture gets filtered through an internal critic that magnifies potential flaws and exaggerates possible mistakes. The person becomes paralyzed, afraid to act, afraid to speak, afraid to be themselves because they have been conditioned to expect criticism, rejection, and failure. This excessive negative feedback manifests in countless ways throughout daily life. A person may have interesting thoughts and valuable contributions to make in conversations, yet they remain silent because their internal monitor convinces them that what they have to say is unimportant or foolish. Another person might possess natural grace and coordination, yet they move through life with awkward stiffness because they have become hyper-aware of their body and terrified of looking clumsy. Still others might have warm, affectionate natures, yet they present cold and distant exteriors because they have learned to fear rejection of their genuine feelings. The inhibition that results from this negative feedback serves a protective function, or at least it appears to. By holding back, by not expressing yourself fully, you avoid the possibility of criticism and rejection. You create a buffer zone between yourself and the world, a space where you feel safe from harm. But this safety comes at a tremendous cost. The walls you build to protect yourself also imprison you. The mechanism designed to shield you from pain becomes the very thing that prevents you from experiencing joy, connection, and fulfillment. You trade the possibility of rejection for the certainty of isolation, and in doing so, you sentence yourself to a life of partial existence. Dr. Maltz identified a particularly insidious phenomenon that he called purpose tremor. This occurs when a person tries too hard to accomplish something, when they apply excessive conscious effort to a task that should be handled by their creative mechanism. The name comes from a physical phenomenon observed in medical practice. When a person tries to hold their hand perfectly still, they often develop a noticeable tremor. The more they concentrate on keeping their hand motionless, the more it shakes. Yet when they shift their attention elsewhere, when they stop trying so hard, their hand naturally becomes steady. The effort to remain still actually creates the very instability they seek to avoid. This same principle operates in virtually every area of human performance. A public speaker who desperately tries to avoid making mistakes becomes increasingly nervous and error-prone. An athlete who consciously thinks about every movement finds their performance deteriorating. A person in a social situation who tries desperately to make a good impression comes across as awkward and insincere. In each case, the conscious mind interferes with processes that should be left to the automatic creative mechanism that operates best without direct supervision. Consider the case of a successful attorney who sought Dr. Maltz's help for a speaking problem that threatened to destroy his career. This man was perfectly articulate in casual conversation. He could argue cases in court with passion and precision, but when he had to give prepared speeches or formal presentations, he fell apart. His throat would tighten, his voice would crack, and words would become stuck somewhere between his mind and his mouth. The problem had grown so severe that he had begun avoiding speaking engagements, and his career was suffering as a result. What this attorney did not realize was that his very effort to speak perfectly was causing his difficulties. He had developed such an intense desire to perform well, such a powerful fear of making mistakes, that he was monitoring every syllable before it left his lips. His conscious mind was trying to manage the complex process of speech, a process that should have been handled automatically by his creative mechanism. The result was paralysis. When he learned to trust his natural speaking ability, when he released his desperate grip on the process and allowed words to flow naturally, his problem disappeared entirely. Similar patterns appear in athletics with remarkable frequency. A golfer who has played for years may suddenly develop problems with their swing. Analysis reveals no physical cause for the difficulty. The problem lies in their mind. They have begun to think about the mechanics of their swing, to consciously control movements that should happen automatically. The more they practice and analyze and adjust, the worse their performance becomes. Only when they stop trying so hard, when they trust their body to do what it already knows how to do, does their swing return to its natural rhythm. The same principle operates in social situations. Consider a young woman who described herself as socially awkward and unable to connect with others. In therapy, it became clear that she possessed genuine warmth and a clever sense of humor. These qualities emerged naturally when she was alone with her family or close friends. But in situations where she felt the need to make a good impression, she became stiff and silent, unable to think of anything to say, convinced that everyone was judging her negatively. Her problem was not a lack of social skills. Her problem was excessive self-consciousness. She had become so focused on how she appeared to others that she could not simply be herself. Every gesture, every word, every facial expression passed through an intense internal scrutiny before she allowed herself to express it. Most of the time, she rejected her natural impulses as potentially embarrassing, and so she said nothing, did nothing, presented a blank facade to the world. When she learned to release this excessive self-monitoring, When she trusted that her natural personality was acceptable and even attractive, her social difficulties evaporated. The solution to these problems lies in a simple but profound principle. You must learn to let go. This does not mean becoming careless or irresponsible. It does not mean abandoning all concern for the consequences of your actions. It means releasing the excessive conscious control that paralyzes your natural abilities. It means trusting your creative mechanism to handle the complex tasks for which it was designed. It means allowing your real personality to express itself without constant interference from your critical conscious mind. The contrast between trying and allowing is perhaps the most important distinction you can make in your journey toward self-improvement. Trying involves force, strain, and conscious effort. It assumes that you must actively make things happen through direct application of will. Allowing involves trust, relaxation, and release. It recognizes that many of your most important capacities operate best when you get out of their way. The paradox is that by trying less, you often accomplish more. By releasing your grip on the process, you enable your creative mechanism to perform at its highest level. This principle appears throughout the pages of Psycho-Cybernetics, connecting directly to the creative mechanism discussed in earlier sections. Your automatic guidance system, that remarkable servo-mechanism that enables you to achieve goals and solve problems, operates most effectively when it receives clear direction and then functions without interference. It needs a target to aim for, and it needs the freedom to find its own way to that target. When you constantly interfere with its operation, when you second-guess its processes and override its decisions, you transform a precision instrument into a chaotic jumble of conflicting signals. The key insight is that your real personality is not something you need to create or manufacture. It already exists, waiting to be released. Think of a blocked stream. The water does not need to be taught how to flow. It simply needs the obstacle to be removed. Your authentic self operates the same way. You do not need to build personality, develop character, or construct a new identity. You need to identify and remove the barriers that prevent your existing personality from expressing itself naturally. Dr. Maltz recommended several practical exercises for releasing inhibition and allowing your real personality to emerge. The first involves practicing relaxation of conscious effort in various situations throughout your day. When you walk, do not think about how your feet are moving. When you speak, do not consciously formulate every word before saying it. When you listen to music, do not analyze the structure and technique. Simply allow these experiences to happen naturally, trusting your body and mind to handle the details while you remain present with the overall experience. A second exercise involves deliberately reducing self-consciousness in social situations. Many people behave as though they are constantly on stage, with an audience watching their every move and judging their every word. This perception creates enormous pressure and inhibits natural behavior. In reality, most people are far too absorbed in their own concerns to pay much attention to anyone else. When you remind yourself that others are not scrutinizing you nearly as closely as you imagine, you can begin to relax and express yourself more naturally. A third exercise involves what Dr. Maltz called shadowboxing. This technique, borrowed from athletics, involves practicing a skill without the pressure of actual performance. A baseball player might take practice swings without a ball present. A speaker might rehearse a presentation to an empty room. By removing the stakes and consequences, you free your creative mechanism to operate without the interference that comes from excessive concern about results. This practice builds confidence and establishes natural patterns that carry over into real situations. Another valuable approach involves visualization. Spend time each day imagining yourself in various situations, expressing your real personality freely and naturally. Picture yourself speaking with confidence, moving with grace, interacting with others with warmth and authenticity. Do not try to force these images or construct them through conscious effort. Simply allow them to form naturally, trusting your creative mechanism to generate representations of your authentic self in action. These mental images gradually reprogram your self-concept and reduce the inhibitions that block natural expression. You can also practice releasing excessive concern about what others think. Many people suppress their real personality because they have accepted the judgments of others as accurate reflections of their worth. They carry these judgments like heavy stones, allowing them to shape their behavior and limit their expression. But opinions are not facts. Criticism, even when delivered with certainty, reflects only the perspective of the critic. When you recognize that negative judgments from others say more about those others than about you, you free yourself from their inhibiting power. Consider keeping a journal in which you record moments when you felt most authentic and alive. What were you doing? Who were you with? What conditions allowed your real personality to emerge? By identifying the circumstances that support natural expression, you can deliberately create more of these conditions in your life. You may discover that certain people bring out your authentic self, while others trigger your inhibitions. Certain activities may feel natural and flowing, while others induce self-consciousness and strain. Use this awareness to structure your life in ways that support the expression of your real personality. The practice of mindfulness can also support the release of inhibition. By learning to observe your thoughts and feelings without immediately reacting to them, you create space between stimulus and response. In that space, you can choose whether to act on your natural impulses or to override them with defensive patterns. Often, you will find that your spontaneous impulses are entirely appropriate and that the override comes from fear rather than wisdom. Mindfulness allows you to distinguish between the two and to make conscious choices about which to follow. Physical relaxation techniques complement these mental practices. When your body carries chronic tension, your mind follows suit. The physical patterns of inhibition, tight shoulders, restricted breathing, clenched jaw, reinforce the psychological patterns. By systematically relaxing your body, you signal to your mind that it is safe to let go. You might practice progressive muscle relaxation, systematically tensing and releasing each muscle group. You might engage in gentle stretching or yoga. You might simply take several slow, deep breaths, allowing your body to settle into a more relaxed state. As you practice these approaches, remember that releasing inhibition is not the same as abandoning all restraint. Your real personality includes natural standards and values. When you express yourself authentically, you do not become reckless or inappropriate. You simply become more yourself, more genuine, more alive. The artificial constraints fall away, but the essential structures of your character remain intact. In fact, they become stronger because they arise from within rather than being imposed from without. The journey toward unlocking your real personality requires patience and persistence. The patterns of inhibition have developed over many years, reinforced by countless experiences and deep-seated beliefs. They will not disappear overnight, but with consistent practice, you can gradually release the grip of excessive negative feedback and allow your authentic self to emerge. Each small victory builds momentum. Each moment of natural expression demonstrates that your real personality is acceptable and valuable. Each experience of successful letting go reinforces your trust in your creative mechanism. Part 11. Do I to yourself tranquilizers that bring peace of mind? Modern society has developed an unhealthy dependence on chemical solutions for emotional distress. Walk into any pharmacy, and you will find shelves lined with products promising calm, relaxation, and relief from anxiety. Physicians write millions of prescriptions each year for tranquilizers and anti-anxiety medications. The pharmaceutical industry has convinced millions of people that the answer to inner turmoil lies in a pill, a capsule, or a tablet. While these medications certainly have their place in treating serious conditions, they have become a substitute for learning how to manage our own emotional states. We have forgotten that the most powerful tranquilizers available are not found in laboratories or prescriptions, but within our own minds. Dr. Maxwell Maltz observed this phenomenon with growing concern throughout his career. Patients would come to him seeking relief from chronic tension, anxiety, and nervousness. Many had already tried medications, only to find that the relief was temporary and often accompanied by unwanted side effects. What these patients needed was not a chemical that would force their nervous system into submission. but rather a method for regaining control over their own mental and emotional processes. They needed to understand that inner peace is not something that happens to you, but something you create through specific mental habits and practices. The first principle that Dr. Maltz emphasized is that inner disturbance is always caused by overresponse. This simple insight has profound implications for anyone seeking peace of mind. When you feel anxious, agitated, or upset, the external circumstances that triggered these feelings are not the direct cause of your distress. The cause lies in how you have responded to those circumstances. Two people can face identical situations and react in completely different ways. One becomes upset and agitated while the other remains calm and centered. The difference lies not in the situation itself, but in the response it generates. Think about this principle carefully. If external events directly caused emotional disturbance, then everyone would react the same way to the same events. But this clearly is not the case. A traffic jam might send one person into a fury of frustration while another uses the time to listen to music and enjoy a moment of pause. A critical comment might devastate one person while another dismisses it as simply one opinion among many. The event itself is neutral. The emotional charge comes from the interpretation and response that you bring to it. Understanding this principle gives you tremendous power. If your distress comes from your own response rather than from external circumstances, then you have the ability to change that response. You are not at the mercy of events. You are not a helpless victim of whatever life throws your way. You can learn to respond differently, to modulate your reactions, to maintain your equilibrium regardless of what is happening around you. This is not a matter of suppressing emotion or denying reality. It is a matter of choosing how much energy to give to any particular stimulus. Dr. Maltz developed a powerful technique for illustrating this principle, which he called letting the telephone ring. Imagine that you are sitting comfortably in your living room, relaxed and at peace. Suddenly the telephone rings. What happens inside you? Most people experience an immediate surge of alertness and perhaps a slight increase in tension. The ringing telephone represents a demand for attention, a potential intrusion into your peaceful state. But consider this carefully. Does the telephone actually force you to answer it? Does the ringing sound reach out and compel you to move? Of course not. You could simply let it ring. You could remain seated, relaxed, while the sound continues in the background. This simple visualization contains a profound lesson. The ringing telephone represents all the demands, pressures, and potential stressors that come at you throughout the day. Each one creates a stimulus, something that could potentially disturb your peace. But you do not have to respond to every stimulus. You can choose which demands to answer and which to ignore. You can let the telephone ring without jumping to attention. The sound exists, but it does not have to control your state. Practice this visualization regularly. Sit quietly and imagine yourself in a peaceful setting. Then imagine a telephone ringing in the background. Do not imagine yourself answering it. Simply let it ring while you remain relaxed and unconcerned. Notice how the ringing can exist without demanding your response. Notice how you can maintain your peaceful state even while the sound continues. This simple mental exercise trains your nervous system to respond differently to demands and pressures. It teaches you that you have a choice in how you react to every stimulus that comes your way. This principle connects directly to the concept of a spiritual thermostat. Just as the thermostat in your home maintains a steady temperature regardless of the weather outside, you can develop an inner mechanism that maintains your emotional equilibrium regardless of external circumstances. When hot winds of stress blow, your internal thermostat keeps you cool. When cold drafts of anxiety threaten, your thermostat maintains warmth and calm. This does not mean you become unfeeling or detached. It means you develop the capacity to return quickly to your center, to restore your balance after being temporarily disturbed. Building this spiritual thermostat requires practice and intention. Begin by identifying your baseline state of peace. What does it feel like to be calm, centered, and at ease? Spend time each day cultivating this state through relaxation exercises, meditation, or simply quiet reflection. Make this peaceful state familiar and accessible. The more clearly you know what peace feels like, the more quickly you can recognize when you have drifted from it, and the more easily you can return. When disturbances arise throughout your day, practice noticing them without immediately reacting. A driver cuts you off in traffic. A coworker makes an annoying comment. A child throws a tantrum. Each of these events creates a stimulus that could potentially upset you. But instead of automatically responding with agitation, pause for a moment. Notice the stimulus. Notice the initial urge to react. Then consciously choose whether and how to respond. In that brief pause between stimulus and response lies your freedom. In that space, you can decide whether to give away your peace or to maintain it. The quiet room in your mind is another powerful technique for maintaining peace. Imagine that within your consciousness there exists a special room, a sanctuary that is always available to you. This room is quiet and peaceful, decorated in whatever way brings you comfort and serenity. Perhaps it contains soft lighting, comfortable furniture, and pleasant views through its windows. Perhaps it is simple and sparse, containing only what is essential for your peace. This room belongs to you alone. No one else can enter without your permission. No external circumstance can disturb its tranquility. Practice visiting this quiet room regularly. Close your eyes and imagine yourself entering through the door. Feel the peace that exists within this space. Sit or lie down in whatever position feels most comfortable. Breathe deeply and allow the tensions of the day to dissolve. Spend as much time here as you need. When you are ready, you can return to the external world, but you carry the peace of this room with you. It remains available to you at any moment. A brief visit, even just a few seconds, can restore your equilibrium during a stressful day. This mental sanctuary technique has been used in various forms by wisdom traditions throughout history. The details may differ, but the principle remains the same. Within you exists a place of refuge that cannot be touched by external events. The storms of life may rage outside, but within your quiet room, peace prevails. By regularly accessing this inner sanctuary, you strengthen your capacity to maintain calm under pressure. You develop confidence that peace is always available to you, regardless of circumstances. The key to all these techniques lies in creating space between stimulus and response. Most people move through life in a state of automatic reactivity. Something happens and they react immediately without conscious thought. A rude comment triggers anger. A traffic delay triggers frustration. A worry triggers anxiety. The stimulus and response are so tightly coupled that they seem like a single event. But in reality, there is always a gap between them, however brief. The secret to emotional freedom is learning to expand that gap, to widen the space between what happens to you and how you respond. Within that expanded space, choice becomes possible. Instead of reacting automatically, you can pause, consider, and then respond deliberately. This does not mean you become slow or indecisive. It means you bring conscious awareness to your responses rather than being driven by automatic patterns. A driver cuts you off, and instead of immediately feeling anger, you notice what happened, notice the anger beginning to arise, and then decide whether that anger serves any useful purpose. Most of the time, you will find that it does not. You can choose to let the incident pass without disturbing your peace. Understanding the difference between responding and reacting transforms your relationship to emotional experience. Reaction is automatic, driven by habit and conditioning. Response is chosen, guided by awareness and intention. When you react, you give away your power to the external circumstance. When you respond, you maintain your power to determine your own state. The circumstance may still exist, still require attention or action, but you meet it from a place of strength rather than being swept away by it. Many people mistakenly believe that emotional non-response indicates weakness or suppression. They think that feeling nothing in the face of provocation means there is something wrong with them. But Dr. Maltz taught that emotional non-response is actually a sign of great strength. The person who can remain calm in a storm demonstrates mastery over their own internal state. They are not suppressing emotion. They are choosing where to direct their emotional energy. They recognize that agitation serves no useful purpose and that clarity and calm produce far better outcomes. Consider the accomplished surgeon who must perform delicate operations under intense pressure. Any moment of emotional agitation could cost a life. The surgeon does not suppress emotion in an unhealthy way. Rather, they have developed the capacity to remain centered regardless of circumstances. Their hands remain steady. Their mind remains clear. This is not absence of feeling, but presence of mastery. The same capacity is available to you in whatever challenges you face. You might wonder how to apply these principles in practical terms. Begin each day with a few minutes of quiet reflection. Visit your mental quiet room. Visualize the day ahead and see yourself maintaining peace regardless of what arises. Imagine various scenarios that might typically disturb you and practice responding calmly rather than reacting automatically. This mental rehearsal prepares your nervous system for the actual events of the day. Throughout your day, practice the telephone ring technique whenever you feel pressured. Imagine the demand as a ringing telephone. Let it ring while you maintain your peaceful state. Choose whether to answer and when. You will find that many demands lose their power to disturb when you stop automatically responding to them. Some demands genuinely require your attention. Others are simply noise, distractions that can be allowed to fade into the background. Monitor your self-talk carefully. Many people constantly scare themselves with mental pictures of disaster, failure, and rejection. They imagine the worst possible outcomes and then react emotionally as if those outcomes had already occurred. This habit of negative visualization creates chronic anxiety and disturbs your peace unnecessarily. When you catch yourself creating frightening mental pictures, stop and replace them with more realistic and balanced images. Ask yourself whether the disaster you are imagining is likely or even possible. Often you will find that your fears are greatly exaggerated. Practice creating positive mental pictures instead. Visualize yourself handling challenges with grace and confidence. See yourself remaining calm in difficult situations. Imagine positive outcomes and satisfying resolutions. These constructive visualizations not only reduce anxiety, but actually improve your performance by programming your creative mechanism for success. Your nervous system responds to mental images as if they were real. By controlling your mental pictures, you control your emotional state. Develop the habit of brief pauses throughout your day. Before responding to an email, pause for 3 breaths. Before answering a question that might provoke a defensive reaction, pause and collect yourself. Before making any important decision, create a moment of stillness in which your best judgment can emerge. These small pauses accumulate over time, gradually expanding the space between stimulus and response, and giving you increasing control over your emotional life. In the evening, take time to review your day. Notice moments when you reacted automatically and lost your peace. Notice moments when you responded consciously and maintained your equilibrium. Both types of experience contain valuable lessons. The first shows you where you still have work to do. The second shows you what is possible when you apply these principles. Do not judge yourself harshly for reactive moments. Simply observe them with curiosity and resolve to do better tomorrow. As you practice these techniques consistently, you will find that your default state shifts. Where once you might have carried chronic tension and anxiety, now you increasingly inhabit peace. This does not mean you never feel disturbed. You remain human, subject to the full range of emotional experience. But you recover more quickly. You return more easily to your center. You spend more time in peace and less time in agitation. The spiritual thermostat you have built maintains your equilibrium with increasing reliability. The tranquilizers you create for yourself through these practices have no negative side effects. They do not dull your perceptions or cloud your judgment. They do not create dependency or withdrawal symptoms. They are always available, requiring no prescription and no expense. They work not by forcing your nervous system into artificial calm, but by helping you access the natural peace that already exists within you. Part 12, How to Turn a Crisis into a Creative Opportunity. There is a profound mystery that has fascinated psychologists, coaches, and performers for generations. Why is it that some people crumble when the pressure mounts, while others seem to find another gear entirely, performing at their absolute best when everything is on the line? This question goes to the very heart of human potential. and understanding its answer can transform how you approach every challenge in your life. Consider two individuals facing identical high-stakes situations. Same circumstances, same pressures, same external demands. Yet one chokes, falters, and fails, while the other rises magnificently to the occasion. What makes the difference? Is it natural talent? Is it luck? Or is there something deeper at work, something that can be learned and mastered? Dr. Maxwell Maltz discovered that the answer lies not in external circumstances, but in the internal mechanisms of our creative mechanism. The difference between those who fold under pressure and those who flourish is not a matter of fate or inherent ability. It is a matter of preparation, perspective, and the systematic training of our nervous system to respond to crisis as an opportunity rather than a threat. Let us begin with a revealing case study that illustrates this principle vividly. Consider the amateur golfer who plays beautifully when alone on the course, striking the ball with precision and confidence during practice rounds. His swing is fluid, his concentration unbroken, and his scores respectable. But place him in a tournament setting, with spectators watching and stakes raised, and something curious happens. His smooth swing becomes jerky and uncertain. His confident strokes turn into tentative prods. The very skills he possesses seem to evaporate when they matter most. This phenomenon perplexed many who observed it. How can someone possess ability that manifests in one context but disappears in another? The answer, Dr. Maltz explains, lies in understanding how our creative mechanism operates under different conditions. When this golfer practices alone, he plays with relaxed attention, trusting his trained skills without conscious interference. But in the tournament, a different dynamic takes over. The added significance of the situation triggers over-motivation, excessive self-consciousness, and an overwhelming desire to succeed that paradoxically ensures failure. The same pattern appears in the baseball pitcher who delivers impressive performances during practice and exhibition games, only to lose all control when the chips are truly down. In the late innings of a close game, with runners on base and the outcome hanging in the balance, his previously accurate pitches become wild. His concentration fragments. The very crisis that should summon his best performance, instead, unravels it completely. These examples illustrate a fundamental principle. Pressure does not create new abilities or remove existing ones. Rather, it amplifies whatever patterns we have established in our nervous system. If we have learned our skills under conditions of tension and anxiety, pressure will amplify those negative patterns. But if we have learned to perform with calm confidence, pressure will amplify that positive foundation instead. Now consider the opposite end of the spectrum, exemplified by athletes like John Thomas, the remarkable high jumper who consistently performed better when the stakes were highest. In practice, Thomas would clear heights around 6 feet 11 inches. But in competition, particularly in crucial meets with everything on the line, he regularly soared over 7 feet. The pressure that destroyed others became fuel for his finest achievements. What made John Thomas different? Was he blessed with some mysterious quality that others lacked? Dr. Maltz's analysis reveals something far more encouraging. Thomas had learned, whether consciously or unconsciously, to harness pressure rather than fight against it. He had trained himself to interpret the heightened arousal of competition not as anxiety to be feared, but as energy to be channeled. This brings us to the secret of what sports commentators call the money player, that rare individual who seems to save their absolute best for the most critical moments. These performers are not born. They are made through a specific kind of preparation that anyone can adopt. The money player understands intuitively what Dr. Maltz articulated systematically. Crisis performance is determined by crisis preparation. The key insight is this: we cannot wait until we are in crisis to learn how to handle crisis. By then, our nervous system will simply execute whatever patterns we have already programmed into it. If we have only experienced our skills under relaxed conditions, the crisis will feel foreign and threatening. But if we have deliberately practiced handling pressure in controlled environments, our nervous system will recognize the crisis as familiar territory. This principle is beautifully illustrated by one of the most effective training methods in the world, one that has saved countless lives: the fire drill. Consider what a fire drill accomplishes. It creates a simulated crisis in a non-crisis environment. The alarm sounds, and people practice the exact behaviors they will need when real fire threatens. No one is actually in danger during the drill, yet the nervous system receives valuable training in crisis response. When a real fire occurs, those who have participated in drills do not freeze in panic. They do not make irrational decisions. Their nervous system has already learned what to do, having practiced the required behaviors under simulated pressure. The crisis becomes manageable because it has been made familiar through prior experience. This same principle applies to any skill we wish to perform under pressure. Dr. Maltz called this approach shadowboxing, borrowing the term from boxing, where fighters train by sparring against imaginary opponents. In shadowboxing, the boxer practices every move, every combination, every defensive technique without the threat of an actual opponent landing punches. He can refine his skills without the overmotivation that real combat would produce. The legendary boxer James J. Corbett, who defeated the great John L. Sullivan, attributed much of his success to shadowboxing. Gene Tunney, another champion, used the same method extensively. By practicing their skills in the absence of genuine threat, they built reliable patterns that would hold up under the most intense pressure of actual competition. When the real fight came, their nervous system had already learned to perform without the interference of panic or overmotivation. This concept extends far beyond athletics. Consider the famous evangelist Billy Graham, who spoke to millions throughout his career with apparent ease and natural eloquence. Did he simply step before crowds and discover he had a gift? Far from it. Graham practiced his sermons exhaustively in empty auditoriums, delivering his messages to vacant seats with full voice and complete emotional commitment. He shadowboxed his presentations until they became second nature, so that when real audiences filled those seats, his nervous system knew only how to perform with excellence. Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate and philanthropist, used similar preparation for his business negotiations and public speaking. He would rehearse important meetings and speeches privately, sometimes in front of a mirror, sometimes simply in his imagination. By the time he faced the actual situation, his creative mechanism had already solved the problems and smoothed the rough edges. Even the great Scottish entertainer Harry Lauder, known for his impeccable timing and stage presence, prepared exhaustively through shadowboxing. He would perform his entire act in empty theaters, refining every gesture, every pause, every expression until the performance was automatic. The pressure of live audiences then became a source of energy rather than anxiety. The principle underlying all these examples is both simple and profound. We learn skills best when we are not overmotivated. When the stakes feel too high, when we desperately want to succeed, our conscious mind interferes with our creative mechanism. We try too hard. We overthink. We attempt to control processes that should happen automatically. The result is precisely the failure we feared. But when we practice without that excessive pressure, our creative mechanism operates freely. It learns efficiently. It builds reliable patterns. Then, when real stakes are present, those well-established patterns can operate even under the added load of genuine pressure. This explains why so many people discover they can perform well in practice but fail when it counts. Their practice was relaxed, which is good, but it did not prepare their nervous system for the additional arousal of performance situations. The ideal preparation combines relaxed practice with gradual exposure to simulated pressure, building tolerance for intensity without overwhelming the learning process. So how do we make our nerves work for us instead of against us? The first step is understanding what nervousness actually is. The physical sensations we call nerves, racing heart, sweaty palms, tight stomach, trembling hands, are identical to the sensations of excitement. Your body does not know the difference between anxiety and eagerness. It simply prepares you for action by mobilizing energy and heightening awareness. The interpretation of these sensations happens in your mind, and this interpretation is entirely under your control. You can choose to read your accelerated heartbeat as proof that you are terrified and about to fail. Or you can choose to interpret it as evidence that you are energized and ready for peak performance. Same physical reality, completely different psychological impact. Dr. Maltz emphasized this crucial point. Excitement is not the enemy of good performance. Excessive tension combined with negative interpretation is what undermines us. The money player, the crisis performer, does not eliminate nervousness. Instead, they channel it, using that mobilized energy to heighten their focus and intensify their effort. There is also a powerful technique for crisis preparation that comes from the philosopher Bertrand Russell, who struggled with anxiety throughout his early life. Russell developed what Dr. Maltz calls the worst-case analysis method. When facing a crisis that generated overwhelming anxiety, Russell would deliberately imagine the absolute worst possible outcome. He would trace his fear to its ultimate conclusion, asking what would happen if his worst fears materialized. Invariably, Russell discovered that even the worst outcome was survivable. Life would continue. He could handle the consequences. By facing the worst case directly, he stripped it of its power to paralyze him. The anxiety diminished because he had removed the uncertainty and faced reality honestly. This freed his creative mechanism to focus on success rather than failure. Consider how this applies to any crisis you might face. Perhaps you are preparing for a crucial presentation at work. Your nervous system is generating symptoms of anxiety. Instead of fighting these feelings or allowing them to undermine your confidence, you ask, what is the absolute worst that could happen? You might perform poorly. Your career might suffer a setback. You might even lose your job. These are serious consequences, but they are not catastrophic. You would survive. You would find another path. With this worst-case scenario honestly acknowledged and stripped of its terror, your mind is free to focus on what you actually want to accomplish. The energy of your nervousness can now serve your performance rather than sabotage it. For practical crisis preparation, Dr. Maltz offers several specific strategies. First, practice shadowboxing your critical performances. Before that important meeting, that presentation, that conversation you dread, rehearse it fully in a safe environment. Speak the actual words you will say. Move through the actual actions you will take. Make the practice as real as possible while maintaining the safety that prevents overmotivation. Second, deliberately expose yourself to graduated pressure. If you are preparing for a major presentation, start by presenting to yourself, then to a trusted friend, then to a small group, gradually building toward the actual event. Each step builds your nervous system's capacity to perform under increasing pressure without overwhelming it. Third, develop the habit of interpreting arousal as positive energy. When you feel your heart race and your stomach tighten, say to yourself, "Good. My body is preparing for an excellent performance. This energy will help me succeed." Over time, this reinterpretation becomes automatic, transforming what was once debilitating anxiety into performance-enhancing excitement. Fourth, use the worst-case analysis whenever anxiety threatens to become overwhelming. Follow your fears to their ultimate conclusion, discover their survivability, and then redirect your mental energy toward the outcomes you desire. Fifth, trust your preparation. When the crisis arrives, resist the temptation to consciously control your performance. You have done the work. You have trained your creative mechanism. Now let it operate. The more you trust your preparation, the better your crisis performance will be. The individuals who consistently turn crisis into creative opportunity are not fundamentally different from anyone else. They have simply learned to prepare differently. They have practiced their skills without overmotivation, built tolerance for pressure through graduated exposure, learned to interpret nervousness as helpful energy, and developed the confidence that comes from honest confrontation with worst-case scenarios. These principles apply to every arena of human endeavor. The surgeon performing a critical operation, the musician playing a concerto, the executive negotiating a merger, the parent handling a family crisis, all can benefit from understanding that crisis performance is determined by crisis preparation. The moment of crisis is too late to begin learning how to handle crisis. That learning must happen beforehand, in the shadowboxing sessions of life. Remember this fundamental truth. Your creative mechanism already knows how to perform the skills you have learned. Crisis simply asks whether you have also learned to let that mechanism operate under pressure. Through the methods Dr. Maltz outlines, you can answer that question with a resounding yes. Equals. Part 13, How to Get That Winning Feeling. Equals. There exists a psychological state that separates consistent winners from everyone else. It is not talent, though talent helps. It is not opportunity, though opportunity matters. It is something far more fundamental, something that can be cultivated by anyone regardless of their current circumstances or past failures. Dr. Maxwell Maltz called this state the winning feeling, and understanding how to access it at will can transform your entire approach to life. What exactly is this winning feeling? It is a distinct emotional and psychological state that signals to your creative mechanism that success is natural and expected. When you inhabit this state, you carry yourself differently. You think differently. You respond to challenges differently. Your nervous system operates from a foundation of confidence rather than doubt. Your creative mechanism has been calibrated for success, and it works tirelessly to produce the outcomes that match your internal setting. Consider the remarkable story of Dr. Carey Middlecoff, a dentist who became one of the greatest golfers of his era. Middlecoff won the Masters tournament in 1955, one of the most prestigious events in all of golf. But what makes his story particularly instructive is not his victory itself, but what happened in his mind during the crucial moments of that tournament. As Middlecoff approached the final holes with the lead, he experienced something unexpected. Rather than the nervousness and anxiety that plague most athletes in pressure situations, he felt a profound sense of familiarity. The situation felt right. The swings felt natural. Every aspect of being in contention at the Masters felt like exactly where he belonged. After his victory, reporters asked him how he handled the immense pressure of the final round at Augusta National. Middlecoff's response revealed the secret of the winning feeling. He said that he had won so many times in his imagination that, when the actual victory came, it felt completely natural. He had cultivated the winning feeling so thoroughly that his nervous system had no other setting. This principle cannot be overstated. Middlecoff had practiced winning thousands of times in his mind before he ever won on that grand stage. His creative mechanism had been programmed with the expectation of success. When the real moment arrived, his internal machinery simply executed what it had been trained to do. The winning feeling was not something that descended upon him from outside. It was something he had built through deliberate mental practice, and it served him precisely when he needed it most. The winning feeling operates like a thermostat for your creative mechanism. Just as a thermostat maintains a consistent temperature in your home, the winning feeling maintains a consistent expectation of success in your mind. When your internal thermostat is set for winning, your creative mechanism works continuously to bring your external reality into alignment with that setting. Every decision, every action, every response flows from that foundation of expected success. Conversely, when your internal thermostat is set for losing, the same mechanism works against you. Your creative mechanism faithfully produces the outcomes you have programmed it to expect. If you expect failure, you will find countless ways to fail. If you expect rejection, you will behave in ways that invite rejection. If you expect mediocrity, your efforts will be limited by your belief in what is possible for you. The mechanism itself is neutral. It simply executes whatever program you have installed. This brings us to a crucial insight. Your feelings are not merely reactions to external events. They are causes that create external events. The traditional view holds that success produces the winning feeling. Dr. Maltz discovered that the reverse is equally true. The winning feeling produces success. When you can access this state at will, you create the internal conditions that make external success far more likely. The story of J.C. Penney beautifully illustrates this principle. Penney founded one of the largest retail chains in American history, but his path was far from smooth. At one point during the Great Depression, his business empire was in ruins. He had lost his fortune. His health was failing. The pressures had become so overwhelming that he found himself in a hospital, broken in body and spirit, convinced that he had nothing left to live for. In his darkest moment, Penny heard a voice from his past. It was the memory of his father on his deathbed years earlier. His father had said something that seemed impossible at the time. "I know that you will become a great and wealthy man someday." Those words had been spoken with absolute certainty, as though the father could see into the future and knew without doubt what his son would become. Penny realized that his father's prediction had always been more than a wish. It was a belief that had been planted in him, a seed of the winning feeling that had been there all along. Even in his moment of complete despair, that seed remained. He chose to believe his father's words rather than his current circumstances. He chose to access the winning feeling, even when everything in his external world screamed failure. That choice made all the difference. Penny recovered his health, rebuilt his business, and went on to create one of the most successful retail enterprises in history. The winning feeling he accessed in his moment of despair became the foundation for everything that followed. His external circumstances had not changed in that moment. What changed was his internal setting, and that internal shift eventually produced entirely new external circumstances. This story contains a vital lesson. The winning feeling does not depend on your current situation. It does not require external validation or evidence. It can be accessed regardless of what is happening around you. In fact, it is most valuable precisely when external circumstances seem to contradict it. When you can feel like a winner in the face of apparent defeat, you tap into a power that can transform that defeat into victory. How do you build and maintain the winning feeling? The process begins with your memories. Every person has experienced moments of success, moments when things went right, moments when they felt capable and confident. These memories are not merely pleasant recollections. They are resources, they are templates, they are fuel for your creative mechanism. Dr. Maltz observed that successful people tend to remember their successes and forget their failures. Unsuccessful people do the opposite. They dwell on their failures, replay them endlessly in their minds, and let them define what is possible. The winning feeling is built on the foundation of remembered success. When you recall and relive your past victories, you activate the same psychological states that produced those victories. You remind your creative mechanism what success feels like. You strengthen the neural pathways associated with winning. Consider the case of a businessman who consulted Dr. Maltz about his struggles. This man had been stuck at the same income level for years, unable to break through to the next level of success. His business was surviving but not thriving. He felt frustrated and stuck, convinced that something was holding him back but unable to identify what it was. In their conversations, Dr. Maltz discovered something interesting. This businessman had actually achieved significant success earlier in his career. He had built a thriving enterprise that had generated impressive profits. But that success had been followed by a series of setbacks that had consumed his attention. He had spent years dwelling on what went wrong, analyzing his failures, trying to understand his mistakes. In the process, he had completely lost touch with the winning feeling that had produced his original success. Dr. Maltz guided this man through a simple but powerful exercise. He asked him to recall in vivid detail his earlier period of success. What had he been thinking? How had he been feeling? What attitudes and beliefs had he carried? The businessman closed his eyes and transported himself back to that time. He remembered the confidence he had felt. He remembered the certainty that opportunities would appear. He remembered the natural, almost automatic quality of his decision-making. As he relived those memories, something remarkable happened. The winning feeling began to return. Over the following months, this businessman made a deliberate practice of accessing and maintaining that winning feeling. He started each day by recalling his past successes and the emotional states that accompanied them. He caught himself when his mind drifted toward memories of failure and redirected his attention to memories of success. The result: within a year, his income had doubled. His business expanded into new markets. Opportunities seemed to appear from nowhere. His external reality shifted to match his internal setting. The connection between feeling and performance cannot be overstated. Your feelings act as a continuous signal to your creative mechanism about what to expect and what to produce. When you feel like a winner, you send signals of confidence and competence. Your creative mechanism responds by generating thoughts, ideas, and behaviors consistent with those signals. When you feel like a loser, you send signals of doubt and inadequacy. Your creative mechanism responds accordingly. This is why attempts to succeed without addressing your feelings so often fail. You can take all the right actions, follow all the right strategies, and still fall short if your internal setting contradicts your external efforts. Your feelings will undermine your best intentions. You will find ways to sabotage your own success because your creative mechanism is working to produce the outcomes it has been programmed to expect. The winning feeling is not a luxury or a bonus. It is a necessity. You can begin developing your own winning feeling through several practical exercises. First, create a success inventory. Set aside time to recall and write down every success you have experienced, no matter how small. Do not limit yourself to major achievements. Include moments of competence, instances where you handled situations well, times when you felt confident and capable. This inventory becomes a resource you can draw upon whenever you need to access the winning feeling. Second, practice daily success recall. Each morning, before you begin your day, spend a few minutes remembering a past success. Do not merely think about it intellectually. Relive it emotionally. See what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt. Transport yourself back to that moment and let the winning feeling fill you. Then carry that feeling into your day, letting it color your expectations and actions. Third, protect your winning feeling from contamination. Throughout your day, you will encounter situations that could undermine your confidence. A criticism from a colleague, a minor failure, a moment of doubt. When these occur, do not let them settle into your psyche and establish residence. Acknowledge them for what they are, isolated incidents, not reflections of your fundamental nature, and return your attention to your winning feeling. Imagine that you have a protective barrier around your confidence, one that allows you to learn from experience without being damaged by it. Fourth, practice success visualization. Spend time each day imagining yourself succeeding at your current goals. See yourself performing with excellence. Feel the satisfaction of achievement. Let your nervous system experience success before it happens in external reality. This practice programs your creative mechanism with the expectation of winning and builds the neural pathways that will support actual success. Fifth, surround yourself with reminders of your past successes. Photographs, certificates, awards, letters of appreciation, any tangible evidence that you have succeeded before and can succeed again. Place these where you will see them regularly. Let them reinforce your winning feeling throughout your day. When doubt arises, these reminders provide immediate access to memories of competence and achievement. The winning feeling has another remarkable quality. It creates its own luck. People who carry this state seem to attract opportunities and favorable circumstances. This is not mysticism or magic. It is the operation of a principle that Dr. Maltz observed repeatedly in his work. When you feel like a winner, you notice opportunities that others miss. You approach situations with confidence that opens doors. You persist through difficulties that others abandon. You attract people who want to be associated with success. The lucky breaks that successful people experience are not random occurrences. They are the natural result of a creative mechanism that has been calibrated for success. Your RAS, your reticular activating system, filters your perception of reality based on what you consider important and relevant. When your winning feeling is strong, you have programmed your RAS to notice opportunities, resources, and possibilities. What seems like luck is actually the product of a perception tuned for success. Conversely, when you lack the winning feeling, you literally cannot see opportunities that exist right in front of you. Your RAS filters them out as irrelevant to your expectation of failure. You might walk past the very person who could help you achieve your goals, never recognizing the connection because your internal state did not permit it. The winning feeling changes what you see, how you act, and what you attract. Building the winning feeling is not about denying reality or ignoring problems. It is about approaching challenges from a foundation of confidence rather than doubt. The problems remain, but your relationship to them changes. Instead of seeing obstacles as evidence of your inadequacy, You see them as challenges to be overcome. Instead of feeling victimized by circumstances, you feel empowered to affect them. The winning feeling does not remove difficulties. It transforms your ability to handle them. Remember that your creative mechanism is always working, always seeking to bring your external reality into alignment with your internal state. The question is not whether this mechanism operates, but what setting you have chosen for it. The winning feeling is the highest setting, the one that produces the most constructive and successful outcomes. When you learn to access this state at will and maintain it as your default setting, you transform the fundamental relationship between your inner world and your outer experience. == Part 14. More years of life and more life in your years. == There is a profound distinction that Dr. Maxwell Maltz draws to our attention, one that has the power to transform how we think about aging and vitality. He distinguishes between having more years of life and having more life in your years. The first is a matter of chronology. The second is a matter of psychology. And while we cannot ultimately control the number of days allotted to us, we have enormous influence over the quality of aliveness we experience in each of those days. The evidence for this truth surrounds us if we know where to look. We have all observed individuals who seem old at 40, their spirits diminished, their curiosity extinguished, their sense of adventure abandoned. And we have observed others who seem youthful at 80, their eyes still bright with interest, their minds still reaching toward new horizons, their hearts still open to the wonder of existence. What explains this difference? Is it merely genetics or is something else at work? Dr. Maltz discovered through his extensive practice and research that mental attitude plays a decisive role in how we age. The body, he observed, faithfully follows the lead of the mind. When the mind accepts the notion that life is declining, that usefulness is ending, that the best days are past, the body responds by manifesting that belief in physical form. But when the mind maintains its sense of purpose, its orientation toward the future, its engagement with meaningful activity, the body responds with vitality that defies chronological expectations. Consider the remarkable case of Anna Mary Robertson Moses, known to the world as Grandma Moses. She lived on a farm for most of her life, engaged in the demanding physical labor of farm work and raising children. She had no formal artistic training and no particular expectation of distinction. But at age 76, when arthritis made embroidery too painful to continue, she picked up a paintbrush and began creating the scenes of rural American life that would make her internationally famous. Grandma Moses painted over 1,500 canvases in the final decades of her life. She produced her most acclaimed works in her 90s. At age 100, she was still painting, still creating, still looking forward to the next canvas. Her example defies every conventional expectation about aging and creativity. She did not begin her artistic career until an age when most people have long since given up on new ventures. And she produced her most significant work when others would have considered her long past her prime. What made Grandma Moses exceptional was not her genetics, though she enjoyed reasonably good health. What made her exceptional was her refusal to accept the narrative of decline. When embroidery became impossible, she did not resign herself to passive existence. She found a new outlet for her creative energy. She remained oriented toward the future, toward the next painting, the next exhibition, the next expression of her vision. Her body responded to that forward momentum with years of productive vitality. This pattern repeats itself throughout history when we examine the lives of those who aged with remarkable vitality. Michelangelo was working on his final architectural projects at age 88. Goethe completed Faust, his masterwork, in his 82nd year. Verdi composed his greatest operas in his 70s and 80s, producing Falstaff at age 80. Titian was still painting at 99. These individuals did not achieve such longevity of creative output through lucky genetics alone. They maintained it through sustained engagement with purposeful work. The relationship between goals and aging cannot be overstated. Dr. Maltz observed that people who maintain clear, compelling objectives remain younger in spirit, and often in body than those who drift without direction. Goals provide the nervous system with a reason to function, a destination toward which to orient, a future to inhabit mentally before it arrives in external reality. When we lose our goals, something profound happens to our life force. Dr. Maltz saw this repeatedly in his practice, particularly among individuals who retired without any meaningful purpose to replace their work. These individuals often experienced rapid physical and mental decline. Their bodies, which had served them well for decades, suddenly began to fail. Their minds, which had remained sharp through years of professional challenge, began to lose their edge. The pattern was so consistent that Dr. Maltz began to question whether retirement itself was the problem. He concluded that retirement was not the culprit, but rather retirement without replacement activity. When work ended and nothing meaningful took its place, the creative mechanism that had been directing the individual's life suddenly found itself without a target. The nervous system, designed to work toward goals, turned inward and began to decay. The body interpreted the absence of forward momentum as a signal that life was concluding. This insight carries profound implications for how we structure our later years. The traditional notion of retirement as a permanent vacation, an endless leisure in which we finally stop working, may actually undermine the very vitality we hope to enjoy. What serves us better is the concept of graduated transition, moving from one form of meaningful engagement to another, ensuring that our creative mechanism always has a target toward which to aim. Dr. Maltz shared the story of a retired businessman who came to him struggling with feelings of worthlessness and physical decline. This man had been successful in his career, respected in his field, and active in his community. But after retirement, everything changed. He felt useless, his health deteriorated, his marriage suffered. He described feeling like a machine that had been turned off, slowly rusting in place. In their conversations, Dr. Maltz helped this man understand that his creative mechanism required goals to function properly. The problem was not retirement itself, but the absence of new objectives. Together, they identified several projects this man could pursue: volunteer work using his business expertise, mentoring young entrepreneurs, learning new skills, traveling with specific purposes rather than mere tourism. As he began to implement these goals, his vitality returned. His health improved. His sense of purpose was restored. He had given his creative mechanism new targets, and it responded by generating new energy. The contrast between this outcome and the common experience of retirement decline illustrates a fundamental principle. Purpose is not optional for human flourishing. We are teleological beings, designed to work toward objectives, to solve problems, to create outcomes. When we deprive ourselves of targets, we deprive ourselves of one of the primary sources of life force. This principle applies at any age, not only in the later years of life. Dr. Maltz observed that young people without clear goals often experienced similar symptoms of decline: low energy, depression, physical ailments without clear cause, a sense of going nowhere. The nervous system knows when it lacks direction, and it responds by reducing output. Why generate energy when there is nowhere for it to go? The solution in all cases is the establishment of meaningful goals. But what constitutes a meaningful goal? Dr. Maltz suggested that effective goals possess several qualities. They must be specific enough to give direction. They must be challenging enough to engage our full capabilities. They must be meaningful enough to generate emotional commitment. And they must be our own, arising from our genuine desires rather than external expectations. Beyond specific goals, Dr. Maltz emphasized the importance of developing what he called a nostalgia for the future. Most people experience nostalgia for the past, a bittersweet longing for days gone by, for youth, for opportunities no longer available. This backward orientation, while sometimes pleasant, tends to drain energy from the present. It reinforces the message that the best is behind us, that life is a story of decline. A nostalgia for the future reverses this orientation entirely. Instead of longing for what was, we cultivate longing for what will be. We develop a deep emotional investment in the days ahead, in the experiences we have not yet had, in the person we have not yet become. This forward orientation signals to our nervous system that life is still unfolding, that the best may still be ahead, that there is more to create and experience. This is not mere optimism or denial of aging. It is a strategic orientation of our creative mechanism toward continued growth and engagement. When we feel nostalgic for the future, we naturally take actions that make that future rich and rewarding. We maintain our physical health because we have reasons to do so. We continue learning because there is more we want to know. We nurture relationships because there is more we want to share. The physical body itself responds to this orientation in remarkable ways. Dr. Maltz pointed to research showing that the human body is constantly renewing itself. Our cells are not static but dynamic, continuously replacing themselves with new material. The skin we have today is not the same skin we had years ago. Our internal organs are constantly rebuilding themselves. At a molecular level, we are not the same physical beings we once were. This constant renewal means that aging is not simply a process of inevitable decline. It is a process that depends in part on the signals we send to our bodies through our mental attitudes and behaviors. When we expect decline, when we act as though our best days are behind us, we may interfere with the natural renewal processes that could otherwise sustain our vitality. But when we maintain engagement, purpose, and forward momentum, we create conditions that support optimal renewal. The concept of the life force that Dr. Maltz discusses relates to this understanding. There is within each of us a creative, generative energy that seeks expression through purposeful activity. This energy is not limited by age, though it can be limited by our beliefs about age. When we remain open channels for this energy, when we give it outlets through meaningful goals and activities, it continues to flow strongly regardless of chronological years. Many of us have observed elderly individuals who possess this quality in abundance. Their eyes sparkle with interest. They pursue projects with enthusiasm. They embrace new experiences with the curiosity of children. They seem somehow ageless, not because they lack years, but because they possess an undiminished life force. Dr. Maltz would say that these individuals have maintained the connection to their creative mechanism, have continued to give it targets, have refused to believe that life diminishes with time. Conversely, we have observed individuals much younger in years who seem to have lost this connection. They speak of being old before their time. They have resigned themselves to limitation. They no longer reach toward anything. Their creative mechanism has been starved of purpose, and their life force has diminished accordingly. The tragedy is that this state often has nothing to do with their physical capacity, and everything to do with their mental orientation. What then is the prescription for more life in your years? Dr. Maltz offers several specific recommendations that anyone can implement at any age. First, maintain specific goals that engage your interest and pull you forward. These need not be grand objectives. They might involve learning new skills, developing new relationships, contributing to causes you care about, creating works of art or literature, building something of value, exploring new places or ideas. The key is that they give your creative mechanism a target and generate genuine anticipation. Second, cultivate the habit of looking forward rather than backward. When your mind drifts to memories of the past, gently redirect it to anticipation of the future. What are you excited about? What do you want to create? What experiences do you want to have? Train your nervous system to orient toward what is coming rather than what has been. Third, remain open to new experiences and new learning. The moment we decide we have learned enough, experienced enough, or grown enough, we begin to decline. Stay curious. Stay interested. Let life continue to surprise and delight you. This attitude alone can transform the experience of aging. Fourth, find ways to contribute. Dr. Maltz observed that people who focus on contribution tend to maintain vitality longer than those who focus primarily on themselves. When we have purposes beyond our own comfort or pleasure, we tap into deeper sources of energy and meaning. Fifth, maintain your physical health not as an end in itself, but as a means to the fuller expression of your purposes. Exercise, nutrition, and rest become not chores, but investments in the capacity to pursue what matters to you. The body responds to this framing with greater cooperation than it offers to mere duty. Sixth, surround yourself with others who share your forward orientation. We are influenced by the attitudes of those around us. If our social circle is dominated by individuals who have accepted decline, who live in the past, who have given up on growth, we will find it harder to maintain our own vitality. Seek out those who are still growing, still creating, still engaged with life. Seventh, practice the techniques Dr. Maltz has shared throughout this book. Use visualization to program your creative mechanism with images of vitality and engagement. Reframe past experiences that might hold you back. Build a self-image that supports continued growth. Access the winning feeling and carry it into each day. All of these practices contribute to the maintenance of life force. Eighth, and perhaps most importantly, believe in your capacity for continued growth and contribution. The evidence overwhelmingly supports this belief. People have achieved remarkable things at every stage of life. The creative mechanism within you does not expire at a certain age. It continues to serve whatever purposes you give it. Trust this capacity and act on that trust. As we reach the conclusion of our exploration of Dr. Maltz's wisdom, let us reflect on the key lessons that have emerged throughout this book. We have learned that we each possess a creative mechanism, a servo-mechanism within our nervous system that works tirelessly to bring our external reality into alignment with our internal images and beliefs. This mechanism is not good or bad in itself. It simply executes whatever program we give it. Our responsibility is to provide it with programs that serve our highest interests. We have learned that our self-image, that internal picture we hold of ourselves, sets the boundaries of what we believe possible. When we change our self-image, we change our potential. The techniques of creative visualization, of imagined experience, allow us to deliberately modify our self-image in the direction we choose. We have learned that mistakes and failures are not reflections of our fundamental nature but feedback from our creative mechanism. They show us where adjustments are needed. They do not define us. We can learn from them and move forward without carrying their weight on our shoulders. We have learned that the present moment offers a fresh starting point. Whatever has happened before, we can begin again now. We can choose new thoughts, new beliefs, new actions. We are not bound by the past except to the extent that we continue to carry it with us. We have learned that goals give direction and meaning to our creative mechanism. Without targets, our internal machinery lacks purpose. With compelling objectives, it generates the energy, ideas, and actions needed for their achievement. We have learned that happiness is not a destination we reach, but a manner of traveling. It comes not from external circumstances alone, but from our internal orientation toward those circumstances. We can choose attitudes that support well-being regardless of what is happening around us. We have learned that success leaves clues, that by studying and emulating the mental patterns of successful individuals, we can develop similar patterns in ourselves. The winning feeling that distinguishes consistent achievers is not mysterious, but accessible through deliberate practice. We have learned that crisis can become creative opportunity when we prepare properly. The pressure that defeats the unprepared becomes fuel for those who have trained their nervous system to channel intensity into performance. We have learned that we can develop a nostalgia for the future, an orientation toward continued growth and engagement that sustains vitality throughout the years of our lives. And now the ultimate question confronts each of us. What will we do with this knowledge? Will we let it remain interesting information that we heard once and then forgot? Or will we implement it, practice it, allow it to transform how we live? The choice belongs to you alone. The creative mechanism within you is waiting for direction. It is ready to serve whatever purposes you establish. It will work as diligently for your highest aspirations as it has for your fears and limitations. The direction is yours to choose. Dr. Maltz believed that every person possesses untapped potential waiting to be released. He saw this potential realized in the lives of countless individuals who applied these principles. He believed that you, whoever you are, whatever your circumstances, carry within you capacities you have not yet imagined. The methods he shared are keys to unlocking those capacities. So I leave you with this encouragement. Begin today. Begin where you are. Begin with whatever seems most relevant to your current situation. Practice one technique. Adopt one new attitude. Take one step toward the person you want to become. The journey of transformation begins with a single action, and that action can happen right now. You have within you a creative mechanism of remarkable power. You have the ability to direct it through the images you hold, the beliefs you maintain, the goals you establish. You have the capacity to live with greater effectiveness, greater satisfaction, and greater vitality than you may have previously believed possible. The principles you have encountered in these pages are not theory. They are practical tools that have transformed countless lives. They can transform yours as well. But they require something from you, the willingness to practice them, to implement them, to give them a chance to work. Your future is being created in this very moment by the thoughts you think, the images you hold, the beliefs you maintain. Choose them consciously. Choose them wisely. Choose them in service of the life you most deeply desire to live. More years of life may or may not be within your control, but more life in your years is absolutely within your power. The creative mechanism within you knows how to generate vitality, purpose, and fulfillment. Give it the right inputs, and it will produce outputs that may astonish you. The best may indeed be ahead, not behind you, but waiting to be created by the power of your own creative mechanism, guided by the wisdom you now possess. This is the message of Psycho-Cybernetics. This is the legacy of Dr. Maxwell Maltz, and this is the opportunity that now lies before you. Conclusion, your new life begins now. And so we arrive at the final moments of our journey together, dear listener. But let me assure you, this is not an ending. This is the most magnificent beginning you have ever experienced. Every word you have absorbed, every concept you have contemplated, every moment of recognition that passed through your mind has been preparing you for what comes next. The life you have always dreamed of living is not somewhere in the distant future. It is available to you right now, in this very moment, waiting only for you to claim it. Let us take one final walk through the transformative landscape we have traveled together. Remember where you began. You started with questions, perhaps with doubts, certainly with a deep knowing that there had to be more to life than what you were experiencing. You sensed that somewhere inside you lay dormant capacities, unrealized potential, a version of yourself that was waiting to emerge. That sensing was not wishful thinking. It was the truth of who you are calling out to be acknowledged. You discovered that the self-image, that mental picture you carry of yourself, is the master key to your entire existence. Every success you have achieved, every failure you have experienced, every limitation you have accepted, and every triumph you have celebrated has flowed from this single source. Your self-image has been the invisible architect of your destiny, quietly constructing the boundaries of your world based on what you believe to be true about yourself. The revolutionary truth you now hold is that this self-image is not fixed. It is not permanent. It is not determined by your past, your circumstances, or your genetic inheritance. It is a creation, and what has been created can be recreated. You are not stuck with the self you have known. You have the power, the right, and the tools to become the self you choose to be. You learned about the magnificent servo-mechanism that resides within your mind. This creative mechanism does not judge your goals. It does not question whether you deserve what you seek. It simply works with tireless precision to achieve whatever target you set before it. It has been working for you your entire life, often achieving goals you never consciously intended because you fed it images of failure, limitation, and inadequacy. Now you understand that you can direct this powerful force deliberately. You can give it targets worthy of your true potential. The theater of the mind became your rehearsal space, that magical place where you can practice success without the risk of failure. You discovered that your nervous system cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. This truth gives you extraordinary power. You can build success memories before you ever experience success in the external world. You can program confidence, competence, and victory into your mental files simply by experiencing them in your imagination with vivid detail and emotional intensity. You confronted the false beliefs that have held you captive for so long. Those voices that told you that you were not smart enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough. You recognized that these were hypnotic suggestions you accepted without question, spells cast upon you by well-meaning but misguided teachers, by a culture that profits from your insecurity, by your own repeated experiences of failure that you allowed to define your identity. The dehypnotization process has begun. You are waking up from the trance of limitation. Forgiveness emerged as a practical tool, not merely a spiritual ideal. You understood that carrying the weight of past mistakes, whether your own or those of others, drains the creative energy you need for building your future. Forgiveness is not about condoning wrongs or pretending that painful events did not occur. It is about releasing the emotional charge of the past so that you can direct your full power toward the present. You learn to forgive yourself for not knowing better when you made mistakes. You learn to forgive others who acted from their own limitations. Most importantly, you learned that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, a liberation that opens the door to everything you desire. The concept of living in the present moment transformed from a philosophical idea into a practical methodology for success. You discovered that the only place where creative action can occur is now. The past is a memory, a mental construct that exists only in your mind. The future is an imagination, a projection that has not yet materialized. Both the past and the future have their uses. The past provides lessons and experiences. The future provides direction and goals. But life itself happens only in the eternal now. When you worry about the future, you drain energy from the only moment where you can actually take action. When you regret the past, you sacrifice the present moment on the altar of what cannot be changed. The successful personality lives fully in the present, using the past as a servant and the future as a guide. Happiness revealed itself not as something that happens to you, but as a habit you can cultivate. You learned that happiness is a choice, a way of traveling rather than a destination you hope to reach. The circumstances you have been waiting for will never bring you the happiness you seek. But choosing happiness now, regardless of circumstances, creates the internal environment where success can flourish. Happiness is the natural state of a healthy self-image. It flows automatically when you release the mental tensions and false beliefs that block it. You confronted your failures in a new light. Instead of evidence of your inadequacy, you now see them as feedback, information that your servo-mechanism uses to make course corrections. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the path to success. Every successful person has failed more times than the unsuccessful person has tried. The difference lies not in the absence of failure, but in the interpretation of it. You now understand that there is no such thing as failure, only results that provide data for your next attempt. The importance of relaxation and letting go became clear. You discovered that effort alone does not produce results. The anxious straining, the desperate trying, the tense pushing actually impedes your creative mechanism. The servo mechanism works best when you provide clear direction and then trust it to execute. This is not passivity. It is the active relaxation of the professional who has prepared thoroughly and then steps back to allow their training to operate without interference. You learn the art of working without strain, of giving full effort while releasing attachment to immediate results. Now, dear listener, we arrive at the most important moment. All of this knowledge, all of these principles, all of these powerful truths mean nothing unless you put them into practice. Understanding is not enough. Agreement is not enough. Even inspiration is not enough. The only thing that transforms your life is action, and for action to be effective, it must be consistent. This is why I present to you the 21-day challenge. For the next 21 days, commit yourself completely to the practice of these principles. 21 days is not an arbitrary number. It is approximately the time required to form a new habit, to establish a new pattern in your nervous system, to begin the process of rewiring your self-image at the cellular level. Each morning of your 21-day journey, begin with 10 minutes of quiet visualization. See yourself as the person you choose to become. Do not merely think about this person. See them in vivid detail. Notice how they stand, how they speak, how they move through the world with confidence and purpose. Experience the feelings associated with being this person. Let yourself feel the pride, the satisfaction, the joy of living from your new self-image. Make this visualization so real that your nervous system accepts it as an actual experience. Throughout each day, catch yourself when old patterns of thought arise. When the voice of limitation speaks, recognize it as an old recording, a habit of mind that no longer serves you. You do not need to fight these thoughts. Simply recognize them and choose a different thought. Replace "I cannot" with "I am learning to." Replace "I am not good enough" with "I am developing my abilities every day." Replace "it is impossible" with "I am willing to find a way." These small corrections, repeated throughout each day, gradually shift the trajectory of your entire life. Each evening, review your day with compassion and curiosity. Notice where you lived from your new self-image. Acknowledge where you fell back into old patterns, not with judgment, but with the understanding that transformation is a process. Forgive yourself instantly for any lapses. Use them as data to improve tomorrow. End each day with gratitude for the opportunity to grow, for the power you have discovered within yourself, for the life that is opening before you. During these 21 days, take at least one concrete action each day that your old self-image would have avoided. This does not have to be a dramatic gesture. It might be speaking up in a meeting, introducing yourself to someone new, taking the first step toward a goal you have postponed, or simply standing and moving with the confidence of the person you are becoming. These actions build a body of evidence that your new self-image is real. They create the success experiences that your servo-mechanism files away as proof of your expanding capabilities. Surround yourself with support during this crucial period. If possible, find others who are committed to growth and transformation. Share your intentions with people who will encourage rather than undermine your efforts. Create an environment that reminds you of who you are becoming. Place visual cues where you will see them. Read passages from this book or other inspiring works daily. Protect your emerging self-image from the doubt and negativity that may arise from those who are threatened by your transformation. At the end of 21 days, you will not be finished. The journey of self-development never ends, but you will have established a foundation, a new baseline from which to continue your expansion. The habits you form during these 3 weeks will become the automatic patterns that carry you forward. The self-image you begin to build will become increasingly stable, increasingly real, increasingly powerful. I want you to understand what is truly at stake here. The life you are living right now is not the only life available to you. It is simply the life that flows from your current self-image. Change that self-image, and you change everything. The limitations you have accepted are not limitations of your potential. They are limitations of your belief about your potential. And beliefs can change. Consider for a moment what is possible for you. What if all the dreams you have dismissed as unrealistic were actually well within your reach? What if the talents you have told yourself you lack are merely dormant, waiting for the right environment to flourish? What if the success you have watched others achieve is no more than your natural birthright, available to you as soon as you claim it? The principles you have learned in this book are not theoretical. They are not optimistic speculation. They are the operating instructions for the magnificent mechanism that resides within you. When you apply them, you are not hoping for results. You are causing results. The creative process works with the reliability of physical law. Plant the seed of a clear self-image, water it with consistent practice, and the harvest will come. It cannot fail. There will be moments of doubt. There will be days when old patterns reassert themselves. There will be times when progress seems slow or invisible. These moments are not evidence of failure. They are evidence that you are in a process, a transformation that unfolds according to its own intelligent rhythm. When doubt arises, return to the fundamentals. Visualize your ideal self. Take action from that self-image. Trust the process. The results will come. You stand now at a crossroads. Behind you lies the familiar territory of your old life, with all its limitations and frustrations. Before you stretches a path into the unknown, into the territory of your unlimited potential. The choice is yours. You can close this book and return to your previous patterns, explaining away this experience as an interesting diversion that ultimately changed nothing. Or you can take the first step onto this new path and never look back. I know what you will choose. The very fact that you have listened to this entire summary tells me that you are ready. You would not have come this far if there were not something within you calling out for expansion, demanding expression, refusing to accept limitation as your final word. That voice you hear inside yourself is not wishful thinking. It is your true nature speaking, the voice of the self you were always meant to become. Your new life begins in this moment, not tomorrow, not next week, not when circumstances are more favorable, right now, in this breath, in this choice. The person you have visualized, the self you have imagined, is not a distant possibility. That self exists already in the realm of consciousness. Your only task is to bring it forth, to let it live through you, to give it the gift of expression in the physical world. The universe has been waiting for you to remember who you are. Every circumstance of your life has been preparing you for this moment of awakening. All your experiences, even the painful ones, have developed in you the depth and character necessary for the greatness that lies ahead. Nothing has been wasted. Every step has been leading to this. You are not broken. You do not need fixing. You are not insufficient or inadequate. You are simply asleep to your true nature, hypnotized by false beliefs into accepting a tiny fraction of your potential. Now you are waking up. Now you are breaking the spell. Now you are remembering the magnificence that has been within you all along. Go forward from this moment with the absolute certainty that your life is about to transform in ways you cannot yet imagine. The self-image you cultivate will open doors that have been closed. The creative mechanism you direct will achieve goals that once seemed impossible. The person you become will look back on this moment as the turning point, the instant when everything changed. This is my final message to you, dear listener. You are unlimited. Your potential is beyond anything you have conceived. The life waiting for you is more wonderful than any life you have imagined. All of this is available to you right now. All that remains is for you to claim it. Your new life begins now. Step into it with confidence. Step into it with joy. Step into it as the magnificent being you truly are. The world is waiting for you. Equals. End of summary. Equals.